So today we're going to be talking about Jim Jordan lost the second vote in the House for House Speaker, and then Logan Paul had a I don't know if I want to say like coming to Christ moment, but it was kind of like that. And the last thing that we're just going to watch a Jubilee video about uh, trans conservatives versus trans liberals, which I don't really think that you can be trans and be a conservative, but I mean, that's what they claim to be. So here we go. All right. The next House Speaker uh, vote is going to happen on Thursday. So, oh, is this what? Oh man, I don't like how this is laid out. ADL, fuck that. Why does Fox have an ADL ad on there? All right. Next House Speaker vote takes place Thursday. Sources. A source familiar processing processing tells Fox News Digital that the next vote for a House Speaker will take place on Thursday. Rep. Jim Jordan's failed to gather enough support to win the gavel in second round of voting on the floor of the House early Wednesday. That's today. And the number of Republican voters against him increased. Yeah, he lost one voter. He lost one voter. He had 200 on Tuesday, and today he had 199. Huh. That's weird. I thought that yesterday he had 20 Republican. That just seems weird. Republican votes to get, yeah, 20 22 Republican votes against Jordan, who's nominated by the GOP conference last week. He could have only lost 4 votes. On Tuesday, he lost 20 Republicans when Jordan's allies wanted to keep going. Huh. I thought he just lost 1 vote. I swear that he just... huh. There's no surprise Jordan will likely have fewer votes today than yesterday, I expect. I thought that he was going to have more votes, which sucks that he lost votes today. So I don't know what's going to happen in the House. They're planning on, I heard plans that they're going to make the, what's it called? Pro se House voter. They're going to, House Speaker, they're going to give him more power so that they can get funding to Israel and Ukraine and stuff, but I don't think that they should do that. There is conflict emerging between allies of House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, who wants to keep going with his bid to be Speaker, the Republicans who want him to back out, and the Republicans who want him to back out. It comes after Jordan's lost the second round of voting on the floor of the House to elect a Speaker, and the number of Republicans voting against him increased. 22 Republicans voted against Jordan, who was nominated by the GOP conference last week. He could lose only 4 votes. Yeah. So he needs 217. On Tuesday, he lost 20 Republican. Yeah, we already know this. All right.
Northeastern is giving me more than just a graduate degree. It's giving me the real-world experience to jumpstart my career.
Oh man, my fucking foot.
Are you gonna stay in the race?
We're making progress. I feel good about it. We're gonna keep going. I've had great conversations, great discussions
I hope they
with
keep
our
going.
colleagues. And frankly, no one in our conference wants to see any type of coalition government with Democrats. So we're gonna keep working, and we're gonna get to the votes.
How
How
many
many ballots are you willing to go through?
Until we get a speaker, we gotta have a speaker, and it can't be some deal with the Democrats. I mean, American people don't want that. They elect Republicans in a majority, small majority. I get it, but we got 200 votes in the first ballot. I think that maybe even is more than what Kevin got back in January. Or right about where Kevin was.
Yeah, he.
Gus Rockus is a vote for us. That's 201.
I think that he had two.
But if it goes beyond 20, can you extend it?
I don't remember exactly. No, we don't want that. Pause that. Republican Rep Jim Jordan's again failed to win House Speaker Scavell in second. That's basically exactly what it said on Wednesday. That's today. Faring worse than he did during his first round of voting one day earlier, the loss raised serious questions over whether the Ohio Republican has a viable path forward as he confronts step opposition and House remains in a state of paralysis. Oh, fuck. Where was I? Despite the defeat, Jordan has vowed to stay in the race. The House is expected to hold a third speaker vote on Thursday at noon. Without a speaker, the chamber is effectively frozen and precarious position that comes aimed conflict abroad and a potential government shutdown next month. Yeah, that's going to be crazy if we don't have a speaker by next month, when I think it's the 14th when we're going to go back into a government shutdown. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen. If they're just not going to be able to have a vote on that bill, on the funding bill. But I don't know. Hopefully we get a speaker in, and hopefully it's Jordan, but this is... It's honestly not looking like it's going to be Jordan. But hopefully they hold out and they just eventually vote in Jordan. Some are pushing to expand the power. Yeah. Some are pushing to expand the power of the interim speaker, Rep. Patrick McHenry of North Carolina. Yeah, that's the guy who wore the bow tie. He looks real funny, honestly. Yeah, we already know all this. But the other vote drug on 15 votes. So, I mean, some Republicans are mad about this, but the last vote drug on for 15 votes, and the other Republicans are mad that Jordan isn't stepping out already, which they weren't mad at McCarthy. So I think that that's kind of weird, but yeah.
If you live in Montana, you could lower your electric bill to less than $30 a month. How? First, you need to live in a qualified area. Enter your zip code below to ensure your eligibility. Second, you need to have an
But let's start this afternoon in Congress. The House going on 15 days without a speaker, even as President Biden is promising major aid to Israel. Emily Wilkins is on Capitol Hill. Emily, what's the latest?
He's promising
Well, Kelly, the House has just finished its second vote for Speaker, and once again, Jim Jordan has come short of the 217
I guess
votes
not
that
just
he will
to
need.
Israel, but
this time,
to
22 Republicans,
Israel,
Ukraine, technically
and
two more
Taiwan.
than last time, voted against Jordan.
Which
And
is
you
just a
saw a
crazy
number
amount.
of lawmakers
That's more
flip
than
their
our
votes. You saw at
annual,
least
like
four
the
who voted for
like
Jordan.
the biggest annual export in America, which is petroleum. Petroleum only is about like 83 billion. Is our biggest export, and they're asking for $100 billion, which makes no fucking sense. I know that we have more exports than just that, but like, why would we be doing that?
Jordan before, not vote for Jordan this time, but you also saw two who didn't vote for Jordan come back and vote for him. And so now Republicans are going to have to figure out what is next. Do they go to another speaker vote? Do they start taking other courses of action that don't involve Jordan as the nominee? We know that Republicans are going to be meeting after this vote, trying to figure out the next path forward. Something that seems to be gaining a lot of momentum is giving Patrick McHenry, the acting speaker, the power to pass legislation. So think that
I don't think that should happen.
$100 billion we're expecting from the White House, as well as government funding, because we are a month away now from another shutdown. And so there's some thought that if they could give McHenry just a temporary power to pass those bills, Republicans can then use that time to get together and figure out a sort of a longer term path forward. But at this point, Kelly, it's just not clear whether we're going to see 16, 17, or 18 days without a speaker. It's not 100% sure what's going to happen. It truly, I feel like we've said this so much, but it truly is unprecedented and uncharted territory.
All right, so he loses 22 versus 20 yesterday.
It's kind of
cool.
It's kind of cool to be watching, though.
What a sweet little orc village. Let's make some trees nearby, a few rivers.
After, oh yeah, this is the one who voted against, who voted for him the first one and then voted against him the next.
As a thanks for what Tom said, and I'm glad to see that Jim is supporting doing some governing.
Do you want to see the House keep voting on the next round, or would you support this resolution to give a Speaker Pro Tem more power?
No, I don't want to support that more power, but I think we need to have board meeting and try to figure out if we can come to consensus. I don't think we should be voting on the floor. I've been always for it, and I truly believe, you know, if you want to...
I would move that to there. I can't hear what she's saying.
To your members, we have to work together and reconcile differences as the members. You know, Speaker is not elected by the public for a reason, because you serve your membership. You need to develop relationship and resolve grievances without attacks and intimidation. Kevin McCarthy was vacated for that reason, because he forced people to the floor. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Right, so that was
To the US now, and Republican Jim Jordan has lost a second vote to become US House Speaker, losing the backing of two more of his colleagues since the first vote.
I thought it was one.
199 Republicans voted for Mr. Jordan for the position, while all 212 Democrats voted for Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, all falling short of the 217 votes needed to elect a Speaker. Mr. Jordan says he intends to continue his candidacy for the position. Some members of both parties say they are open to granting additional powers to temporary Speaker Patrick McHenry.
I think that that's a bad idea.
And avert a government shutdown next month.
All right.
This, I think we can all agree on. When your chaplain warns you about your cacophony of chaos, you know you're in trouble. Those were the words of Margaret Kibben, chaplain of the House of Representatives, used this morning before the House, nominally run by Republicans, lurched toward another inconclusive vote to elect a Speaker. The current Republican nominee, Jim Jordan, lost ground, falling 22 votes short of the necessary 217. This after falling 20 votes short yesterday. This is not what momentum looks like. Proving yet again to become Speaker of the House, you need to count votes better than you can spin reporters. Jordan's camp hypes well, but counts poorly. Twice as many Republicans now oppose Jordan's elevation as Speaker as supported Kevin McCarthy's ouster from the Speaker's office more than 2 weeks ago. The House has not functioned since McCarthy's dismissal. That means the party running the House is confused, impotent, and lost.
I don't
you can
know if
be
they're
forgiven
confused.
thinking,
They're
just wake me when there's a speaker. I promise, we will. But first, the majority party must rouse itself from this directionless legislative daydream. Robert Costa and Scott McFarland join us now. Robert is CBS News' chief election and campaign correspondent. Scott is a CBS News congressional correspondent on Capitol Hill. And Scott, let's start with you. To the best of your ability, state for us the current state of play.
Things are unmistakably going in the wrong direction for Jim Jordan in his pursuit of the speakership. The other Republicans who've defected from his camp have been pretty emphatic as the night began. He's going to lose more votes the next time
like
this comes
Logan
up to a
Paul
ballot.
more.
We caught up with Jim Jordan a few moments ago. Let's take a listen to that, and I'll tell you what happens next.
How long do you think this is going to go, Mr. Jordan?
Till we get a speaker.
Going to get back out there and vote tonight?
I don't think we're going tonight, but I got to talk to Patrick about the schedule.
So what are the concerns with Jim Jordan among those who voted a different way? Well, some of them are in very much purple districts, or districts that President Biden won in 2020, including suburban New York City, Detroit, California. And one of those New Yorkers, Anthony D'Esposito, told us that he doesn't like Jordan's voting record, among other things, that he headed the country towards a government shutdown before, was not on the right side of a vote on 9/11 funding. And these are not votes that are going to be easy to change, but there's also this other inescapable reality. There are more and more members over the past 48 hours talking openly, including to cameras, about their proposal that Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry be given this job on a longer-term basis and that his portfolio should be broadened. Republicans have been speaking outwardly about this for quite some time, and now there are some Democrats jumping in, telling me that they might support Patrick McHenry getting the job, at least
I
on a
hope
short-term
that they don't
basis,
do that.
just
That
to reopen
sounds-
the House, to
that
get
sounds
legislation
terrible to
flowing
me.
again, to ensure aid for Israel.
I don't think
and
we need
Ukraine, and no
legislation
government
flowing
shutdown.
again.
Major, I expect those calls to increase in
Well, that's
frequency
just me.
and volume tomorrow.
Robert, you and I have talked about this. We've been reporting on it all week. What would you say, based on your reporting, is the current attitude and state of play with this idea of enlarging the powers of the temporary Speaker Pro Tem, Patrick McHenry?
It's definitely, as Scott said, a fallback option people are looking at, but it has some constitutional and legal questions. What does it mean to be Speaker Pro Tem of the House? I mean, it's a ministerial role meant for a crisis moment to facilitate the Speaker election, and to expand its powers could be within the rules, but it could also be challenged when it comes to war powers, legislating, appropriating.
And it would need Democratic buy-in. And as I've talked to Democrats, as I'm sure you have too, they would want some concessions before they would agree.
They would. And
this would be an open House floor vote like everything else.
It'd be a very open vote. And Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has been positioning himself as someone who's willing to listen to Republicans, but he's not going to approach first. He knows he's in a leveraged position.
Right. Scott, it is my sense in this idea of a fallback position. But of course, Jim Jordan would have to withdraw and no one else seek the speakership, a lot of other things. But just focusing on the Patrick McHenry question for a moment, it's a conversation, but it strikes me as there would have to be some actual negotiations
very well
to commence before this really becomes something operative. True?
Yeah, and it's going to involve a bipartisan coalition of Republicans and Democrats. And that's just going to rub any number of Republicans the wrong way at this moment in time, in which acrimony is palpable inside the Republican conference. There is this toxic stew, Major, of animosity, anger, and antsiness among House Republicans 2 weeks into this standoff. And cutting a deal with Democrats is just going to go over like a lead balloon with some number of members of the conference. I talked to 3 Jim Jordan supporters late today. Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Chip Roy of Texas, Byron Donalds of Florida. All of whom, Major says, Jim Jordan should go back on the floor, continue trying to push this towards a successful vote the way Kevin McCarthy did. But I got to tell you, Major, in this unique moment where you have this coalition of, in some cases, moderates opposing Jim Jordan, this opposition feels bulletproof. I mean, these opponents of Jim Jordan inside his own party are making the rounds here at the Capitol, doing interviews and championing their opposition. It doesn't feel like it's about to buckle anytime soon.
For both of you, I want to play an interview I just got finished doing with Ken Buck, Republican from Colorado, in the Against Jordan column twice now, talking about what he thinks will happen to the prospects for Jim Jordan if there are more votes for him to be elevated as Speaker. Let's take a listen.
I think he bleeds 3 or 4 votes this next time, maybe a little bit more if he goes to the floor a 4th time. What he's counting on, there's a lot of grassroots support for Jim Jordan. So the phones are ringing and people are making demands, and there are a lot of members who have folded as a result of that. But more and more members are going to be able to say, I voted for him the first 2 times, now we have to move on and find a speaker.
Robert, how does that strike you? Some members saying, look, I was a team player round 1. I was even a team player round 2. But I can't keep doing this. Does that strike you as something that is not just Ken Buck's opinion, but a plausible, likely scenario?
Big story here in Washington, D.C. is the fight or struggle to select a new House Speaker. Today, Congressman Jim Jordan failed to clinch enough votes to win the job again. The House is set to vote again. That will be a 3rd time tomorrow at noon. This comes as CNN is learning that Jordan's opponents have been deploying an interesting strategy on how to pressure the Ohio Republicans to drop out. They're drawing straws for who will vote against Jordan on each ballot so that the opposition to his candidacy appears to grow. The House has now been without a speaker for 2 weeks after Kevin McCarthy was ousted.
That's crazy that it's already been 2 weeks. It just seems like a few days ago.
On both ballots. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. So we've seen, what some would call a pressure campaign. Others are calling a bullying campaign against individuals who aren't on the Jordan train. Sadly, your wife got some ugly anonymous text messages warning her to convince you.
Yeah, I heard about this. This is fucking funny.
Read, quote, why is your husband causing chaos by not supporting Jim Jordan? I thought he was a team player. Your wife responds, who is this? And then, oh, now you have nothing to say? This person texts again. Your husband will not hold any political office ever again. What a disappointment.
What the fuck?
And failure he is. People are pretty tough when they're anonymous. But that's pretty ugly stuff to send it to your wife. I see from your vote today, it obviously did not have the desired effect.
You know, I'm a 30-year Air Force guy, a retired general, commanded 5 times, deployed 4 times, led a flying squadron in combat. So if they think a pressure campaign or bullying campaign is going to work with me, it's not. In fact, it's angered me. It's angered my good friend, Steve Womack, who's a retired colonel, for example, and Mario Diaz-Balart. He's angered. The way to get to us is through an intellectual discussion and to work through the concerns we have. But to threaten us with primaries, threaten us with the shenanigans and sending, anonymous texts and phone calls. They were calling my wife anonymously as well. She's recorded some.
Do not do that
so
if you're.
It's wrong.
Do not be calling
some folks
these
are so
people.
mad they don't mind what boundaries they cross, but it's not right. We can like each other and still disagree, but some people don't have that ability.
Has that ever happened to you before? Your wife getting nasty phone calls and texts like that?
No, one time there was people screaming at her in the neighborhood, and so she didn't like that. I guess I'm used to it more.
Yeah, don't be doing that.
She does get a little bit,
for
but
sure.
Obviously I get the 98 or 99%.
That's just
that, but it's not right
that's
to
just
take it on family.
Not right.
And like I say, she was not angry last night. She just shared it with me, and I said, well, send it to me, because it's not right. And so I released it.
Yeah,
and
don't be attacking people's, or not even attacking, I guess, but
politics and still not
verbally
treat each other
attacking people's
and wrongfully. We
loved
should be able
ones
to be respectful in
who
our
are in
debate.
Congress. That's just
so,
wrong.
In fact, Jordan is doing worse than he did yesterday. He had fewer votes than he did yesterday. A spokesman for Jordan said he's not dropping out. We're going to keep going.
Good. I hope that he keeps going.
Do you see Jordan getting to 217 anytime soon, or do you think he's going to keep doing worse and worse?
I believe he's done. He needs to say. He needs to.
I hope that he's not done.
From this. He's going to lose more votes tomorrow. I know it. Already have. I know who's going to cross over and change. He doesn't have any pathway.
Traitors,
to
bro.
217.
Fucking
and there's
traitors.
2 different reasons why. You have some group that's worked with him going back 10 years, and they've worked with him on appropriations. More senior folks where he's created a lot of chaos. I'm in the other camp where I don't like how he got here, right? He got here with a small number of Jordan backers who 8 of them, for example, 7 of them backed him. but there was 8 total. That was vacated the chair on Kevin McCarthy. Our rules state in the Republican conference, you got to have 112, right? And they came in with 8. It violated our rules. If they followed the rules, you had to have 112. And then we voted for Steve Scalise, and he got the majority vote. And then we had 5 Jordan backers say they would never vote for Steve, right? But would only vote for Jim Jordan right after Steve won. And also at the same time, Jim Jordan told everybody that he would only get behind Steve if he had 217 votes. That is not our rules. In our rules, if you get the majority, you get behind that person, whoever has the majority, and you vote together on the floor. And so that was the straw that broke my camel's back there when those 5 Jordan folks said they would never vote for Steve right after the election, but only for Jim. And Steve was there and he didn't speak up, which means that he is somewhat complicit. You can't play a game where I'm the only guy playing by the rules and the other guy is not. It's not American. We believe in fairness and that the law applies to everybody, and that wasn't the case with a small group of individuals here.
But I have to ask you, I mean, I hear what you're saying about all of this, but Jim Jordan was part of the effort to overturn the presidential election. I mean, you know, did that bother you?
Well, I disagreed with it. Obviously, I voted to certify the election. But truth be told, about half of our conference had, on some of those states, didn't vote to.
2/3 of your conference.
Yeah, right. I'm not that one. I'm not one of those guys who did. I thought it was our constitutional duty to do that. Yes,
sure.
It bothered me. But our rules would be if we debate, we put all of them together, and once you get a majority, you should get behind them. I didn't vote for Jim Jordan. I voted for Kevin McCarthy. I voted for Steve Scalise. But our rules are you support the winner of this. But in this case, we were never respected in that. At every turn, a small group went against the majority and were able to kick out McCarthy and block Steve. And so at that point, you can't play in an unlevel playing field. That was what was going on.
So who's going to be your speaker? Is Patrick McHenry going to get it by default, do you think?
I think he's
hope
one
not.
of the most likely guys to
That
do it.
just
He's
seems
reluctant,
crazy.
Which makes him one of the best. He has a respect from everybody in the conference. I think Kevin McCarthy still has a good chance to be our next speaker, frankly. There's other people, Tom Cole, a great guy from Oklahoma, widely respected. We have younger folks like Congressman Green from Tennessee or Congressman Hearn from Oklahoma.
I don't know who Congressman
We have folks that
Green
can win
is.
218 votes. What happened is you had 2 people that the Jordan team, not Jordan himself necessarily, but they undermined him.
All right, after this one, then we're going to watch the video of Logan Paul talking
I don't think
about
voting against Kevin McCarthy is chaos. I think $33 trillion in debt is chaos. I think that facing a $2.2 trillion annual deficit is chaos. I think that not passing single subject spending bills is chaos. I think the fact that we have been governed in this country since the mid-90s by continuing resolution
but I
and
like him.
omnibus is chaos. And the way to liberate ourselves from that is a series of reforms to this body that I would hope would outlast Speaker McCarthy's time here, would outlast my time here, and would outlast either of our majorities. Reforms that I have heard some of the most conservative members of this body fight for, and some of the reforms that we've been battling for, that I've even heard those in the Democrat caucus say would be worthy and helpful to the House. So for all the crocodile tears about what may happen later this week about a motion to vacate, working with the Democrats is a yellow brick road that has been paved by Speaker McCarthy, whether it was the debt limit deal, the CR, or now the secret deal on Ukraine.
I will not run for Speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else.
I just share with my colleagues that I'm withdrawing my name as a candidate for the Speaker designee.
No, I was going to support Jim.
You're going to support Jim Jordan?
Yes.
Do you think that he has the votes to go to the floor?
I think he's got the votes, but we'll see.
On behalf of the House Republican Conference, I rise today to nominate the gentleman from Ohio, Jim Jordan, as Speaker of the People's House.
When is someone gonna... All right.
For the first time in history, the Speaker of the House has been ousted following a motion to vacate. What this amounts to is a vote of no confidence, and the truth is that Kevin McCarthy did not have the confidence of the majority of the entire House of Representatives, which is required to continue as the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is a unique position in Congress. Unlike the Senate majority and minority leaders, or the House leaders and whip, the Speaker of the House is elected by the entire House, not just one conference. This means you need a coalition between all the factions of the majority party to remain Speaker. In a party that is undergoing an ideological realignment following the Trump revolution of 2016, this is no easy task. What happened was not about Republicans versus Democrats. It wasn't a group of radicals who betrayed the Republican Party to oust Kevin McCarthy.
Not. That's what they tried to betray it as.
A vote which Kevin McCarthy lost. Our founding fathers made no mention of parties in our Constitution. They expected a speaker to gain the support of a majority of representatives. Representatives which they assumed would each be independent. Representatives with a core loyalty to their constituents, not a national party. In multi-party parliamentary systems, which you see in Israel and Germany and other countries across the world, when one party does not command an absolute majority, a prime minister must be able to build a coalition government. This means making some compromises, but negotiating a deal to keep all factions on board. This is basically what we need to do in the House today. Our Republican Party is split into several factions: establishment, liberal, Tea Party, MAGA, and America First. Republicans need to find a speaker who is able to unite the entire party and deliver on conservative priorities. After McCarthy made the announcement that he will step aside and not run for Speaker of the House again in the next election, Steve Scalise, the House Republican leader, was able to briefly secure the Speaker nomination with only 113 votes. But 99 Republicans voted against him behind closed doors, and many of them made their reasoning known publicly, whether it be that they distrust Scalise on policy or they had concerns over his health, since Scalise is currently battling blood cancer. Unable to come anywhere close to 217 votes required to become Speaker, Steve Scalise did the best thing he could and stepped aside and relinquished the nomination of Speaker to give another person a try. That new and open speakership election led to Jim Jordan from Ohio's 4th District getting another chance to become Speaker and finally receiving the Republican nomination. This nomination is absolutely historic. Jim Jordan becoming Speaker would be an enormous upgrade over McCarthy. And finally get the gavel into the hands of a conservative warrior.
It would be awesome.
More than that, it represents the solidification of the MAGA revolution, claiming victory over the remnant Bush-era Republican Party. 10 years before the Trump Revolution, Jim Jordan was elected to the House of Representatives in 2007. 7 years later, he was elected the first chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. And now, 8 years after that, he is the Republican nominee for Speaker of the House. This is his moment. Jim Jordan becoming Speaker is representative of the broader shift within the Republican Party. No longer the party of Bush and the business elite, the Republican Party is now becoming the party of the American working class, the party of the American people. Moving the Speaker's gavel from California to Ohio reflects this change. Under Trump's leadership, Ohio has gone from swing state status to being one of the most solidly red states in the Rust Belt, and elected an incredible new America First Senator in J.D. Vance. What the Republican Party must now do is replicate its success in Ohio to the rest of the Rust Belt and to the entire country at large. What better leader in Congress is there to do that than Jim Jordan as Speaker of the House? And when it comes to 2024, what better partner could Donald Trump look for in passing his revolutionary Agenda 47 through Congress? In 2016, much of the Trump agenda was stonewalled in the House by then Speaker Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy's young gun buddy. With a speaker like Jim Jordan and a president like Donald Trump,
the thing is that it might not get through the Senate,
only remaining roadblock will be Mitch McConnell in the Senate, and it doesn't appear that he will be in that position much longer. Regardless, that topic is for another day, but it is a fight that must be had, and must be had after the 2024 election, but before Trump takes power in 2025. For Jim Jordan to become Speaker, he must first win the votes. In this first round of voting on the House floor, Jim Jordan came out the other end with 200 Republican votes. 20 rhinos voted for a cast of characters who are not currently seeking the speakership, 7 for Scalise, 6 for Kevin McCarthy, and 3 for Lee Zeldin, along with 4 others going to a handful of one-off figures. Now, this is a very similar position to what Kevin McCarthy faced after his first round of voting on the floor back in January.
Oh man, he's gonna take him out right here.
Rebels are far more divided and unserious. Jordan will have some time to work with these 20 and hopefully win them over to his side, just as Kevin McCarthy did back in January. It seems clear that most of their protest is not over Jordan, but over how McCarthy was removed and Scalise stepped aside. Many of them just want to protest what happened to their preferred candidates, and many of them are just mad with Matt Gaetz. But the truth is they have little conviction over stalling the House much longer, especially with all the crises facing America right now. After a few rounds of voting and pressure from voters and the media, it is very likely that Jim Jordan will be able to consolidate the support he needs and win the speakership. A true victory for conservatives across America. Now, in the very unfortunate possibility that Jordan cannot get the votes, there are still 2 final good options that could unite the GOP.
I don't know what he's going to say about this.
One of those options is Kevin Hern, the chairman of the House Study Caucus. The other is Lee Zeldin, a former congressman from New York.
I don't know who Lee Zeldin is.
Respect across the party. In the near impossible scenario that none of these 3 men become speaker, then we face a very disturbing possibility. Democrats and Rhino Republicans working together against the wishes of the American people. But rest assured, none of these outcomes involve Democrat Hakeem Jeffries becoming speaker. Ideally, if Jim Jordan, Kevin Hern, and Lee Zeldin cannot become speaker, we just shouldn't elect a speaker. We should let the government shut down and paralyze the rest of Biden's term. This would stop Biden's destruction of America and end funding for his political persecution of America's conservatives. But that outcome is also basically impossible. One Democrat has floated the idea of making former President George W. Bush speaker, but that nightmare scenario is a pipe dream for the neoliberal uniparty. I don't think Bush would ever accept that job. But think about what that symbolizes, that the former Republican president would be considered to be Speaker of the House and serve at the pleasure of Democrats. That is how much progress we have made in exposing the uniparty and pushing forward a new vision of American prosperity. But no, George W. Bush will not be Speaker.
That would
More
be
likely, in that
terrible.
scenario, some uniparty Republicans would cut a deal with Democrats and give Dems chairmanship over certain committees for the rest of this Congress in exchange for electing a Rhino Speaker. In that scenario, the uniparty will be fully exposed and the primary fury would be intense from the Republican grassroots. These people would not get re-elected to Congress. They would never be elected as Republicans again. It would help clean house for the so-called moderate Republicans who care for nothing more than self-enrichment and power, and hopefully lead to a much better Republican conference come 2025.
He's going to do what
But
I was going to do.
that is the worst case scenario. As of now, I think Jim Jordan has a real shot at becoming Speaker. 200 votes on the House floor has solidified him as the best case to unite the Republican Party. And I feel that that number will only climb in the coming days. Pray for Jim Jordan, pray for the country, and pray for the American people. It's time for change in Washington. It's time for new blood and new leadership. Let's make it happen. America first.
Based.
If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and share the video with a friend. Together we can push forward a national renewal and take back our country.
We're going to watch the clip of Logan Paul talking about his experience with Christ right before his
And you could use Riverside.
Boxing match.
Switch to Riverside. You're still here. Okay.
And he got so excited. He got so excited every time he landed a punch, because he did land some, and it was amusing to me to watch him be as proud as he was of himself every time he landed one punch. And I was like, yo, you really ain't cut out for this.
In the beginning of the fight, you said, "I forgive you, Dylan." That shit was hard, but did you mean that? Did you actually like mentally tell yourself, I'm gonna forgive this guy, or are you just fucking put on a show?
So the major challenge
All right, one sec.
for me
Let's
in this
go
fight.
back to.
You didn't think I could box, huh? I was like, you can't. And fucking hit him in the body. And then he got so excited. He got so excited every time he landed a punch, because he did land some. And it was amusing to me to watch him be as proud as he was of himself every time he landed one punch. And I was like, yo, you really ain't cut out for this.
In the beginning of the fight, you said, I forgive you, Dylan. That shit was hard. But did you mean that? Did you actually, like, mentally tell yourself, I'm going to forgive this guy? Or are you just fucking putting on a show?
So the major challenge for me in this fight, as we knew, was that this guy got under my skin. How could he not? How could any person watch what he did to the person you love most in the world and be okay with it and not want to actually murder this human being? But as I just described, I'm not that type of athlete. I'm not that type of person. When I lead with aggression and I'm fighting with emotion, I'm not in my best state.
Ooh.
And when we did that face-to-face with the glass, he's standing across from me, and I learned that he riles me up. He brings out that side of me that goes, I want to fucking kill this guy. And that's not good. It's
Have
not,
you tried that,
No,
though?
that is not good.
I tried, but then I just look stupid throwing wild punches, and then I get
That
caught.
is-
I'd
that
get
is,
caught with something, and
not
you
how
know
you
he
should
gets that
fight.
knockout that the world
When
was
is he
waiting
gonna
for, and it
talk
didn't
about
happen. Like the story
Christ?
was not meant to be written that way. So I come back to the house, and I'm like, damn, it might be harder to flip that switch into calmness and tranquility and fighting with my mind, not my heart, than I thought. How do I do this? So me and Nina sat right over there. We had a meditation, and in this meditation, I'm sitting here. I go, how can I go into this as calm as possible and not want to fight with the emotion? And this word kept coming to my mind: forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. And then, man, y'all are gonna laugh at me. The internet's gonna laugh at me, but bro, Jesus came into my mind.
I don't think anybody's
I swear to
laughing
God,
at
I
it.
swear to God.
That is awesome.
Let's go.
I love how Mike's so hyped up right there.
What a nice thing to hear on
Because
Sunday.
Mike is a
About
Christian, I'm
time.
pretty
I was
sure.
like, fucking Jesus is like the man who is master forgiveness, the power of forgiveness. A whole religion was built on the power of forgiveness. Like
Actually, the Lord's Prayer talks about forgiveness in it. That's one of like the main parts in there is it talking about forgiveness. It says here, I can read it to you. I think I have. It's in Matthew. Where is it? I think it's Matthew 16. Or 6, I mean. I think it's Matthew 6, 14. Oh, so the Lord's Prayer is Matthew 6:9 to like 6:12. But after that, Jesus is still talking, and he says, "Oh shit, one sec." Sorry. I shouldn't have swore right there, but when I'm talking about this. But for if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. And that's straight Jesus talking right there. Right after he says how you should do the Lord's Prayer. And that's Matthew 6:14.
Amount of followers he has because of this one principle that if you can grasp it, and it's hard to grasp. You know how hard it was for me to go, I forgive you, bro. I forgive you for making my life hell. I forgive you for hurting the person I love most in this world for months on end when she's done nothing to you. But I
That
knew
is
that if
kind
I
of
could
a
do
power
it,
move,
and I knew that
forgiving
if I
someone.
meant that I actually forgave him, I could enter this fight with a calm mind and just box. I'm not here to fight. It's just a guy, a nameless, faceless opponent, another hard spar, and I'm not going to go in there and fight with emotion. I'm just going to simply do my job in my office tonight, which happens to be a boxing ring.
Damn.
So I did mean it when I said I forgive him.
I'm glad you told me about the Nina part, that she knew that was coming. Because if I were Nina watching that, I'd be like, "What the fuck?"
I told her.
You're forgiving him.
I said,
Kill this motherfucker.
I said, after the meditation, I said, I think I just found something real powerful, but I don't think you're gonna like it. She's.
And it was. He won. Hopefully this continues and he comes closer and closer to Christ.
He's like, what? I was like, I forgive him. I forgive him.
Damn.
And-
Imagine you
and-
walked into the fight with remember the Pokemon card, but with the Bible.
That would be so based.
And George.
That'd be so based.
Bro.
George was there.
What?
George was there. He was looking down on us from
Well,
above.
and you know what? This might be the beginning of the reconnection of you and George.
It could be. And
You
he
know?
tweeted.
That would be good.
Yo, he tweeted right after you won. What was it again?
God is real.
Jesus is real.
One of them.
Which
I
actually,
think
that's, but I
Face.
will say this: if you had that epiphany and he tweeted that, I'm just saying, might be a good time to rekindle the conversation.
George is one of my best friends, bro.
George is a
We
great
we are so similar. Like, I want the best for this guy, and like, it's not doesn't feel uncommon that there may have been some sort of biblical, worldly ether crossing happening there. Like, it made sense. Like, I don't know. I was like, if I can forgive this dude, I'm gonna win this fight. And so yeah, I meant it. And Nina, by the way, I ran it by her. She was like, why would I be mad at that? And I was like, well, because like, you like I don't know how you would react to me being okay with the person who's made your life hell.
Didn't she say honey badgers don't care?
She said, I don't give a fuck what you do.
What do you? What if you got clean knocked out and then you went back and were like, "Sorry, babe."
I want to undo it.
We were talking about that.
babe.
We were talking about that. What does that conversation look like?
I don't know because in my mind I was like, this could very well happen. Like, it could, that would.
Can you imagine?
My life has been going so great. All these great things have happened to me, and then this dude just starches me, and it's over.
You come here, her bags are gone. She's gone. You come to do the podcast today. Me and Jeff don't
We're
show
gone.
up. We're with Tana. Dude.
Greg's gone.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah. I'm over in Jake's camp.
I wouldn't blame you, bro. I wouldn't blame you.
You talked about God now. Really quickly, I want to talk about, they say God, country, family. I want to talk about country. When you and Dylan got in the ring, there was a beautiful song played, a real important song to America.
Yeah, real beautiful.
The
What was
Star
the song?
Spangled Banner.
Star Spangled Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
The Hulk.
Is that even the right name of the song?
The
Yeah,
Hulk's
right?
theme song. Yeah.
And
What are you saying, babe?
the entirety of that UK audience.
Oh. Okay.
Booing.
Both fighters are from the U.S.
Booed that song.
Fuck everyone.
I did
Fuck both these
not-
guys in the ring.
I did not understand it in that moment.
Who booed the song?
I said, we need to do something about this. Played
What?
a real important song
Yeah.
to America.
Yeah, real beautiful.
The Star Spangled Banner.
Star Spangled Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
The Hulk.
Is that even the right name of the song?
The
Yeah,
Hulk's
right?
theme song. Yeah.
And the entirety
This is
of
not
that
good.
UK audience.
Started booing.
Both fighters are from the U.S.
Booed that song.
Fuck everyone.
I did
Fuck both these
not-
guys in the ring.
I did not understand it.
What?
Yeah, real beautiful.
The Star Spangled Banner.
Star Spangled Bruce Banner.
Banner. Bruce Banner.
The Hulk.
Is that even the right name
Yeah,
of the song?
the
Yeah,
Hulk's
right?
theme song. Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
the
a good thing that it
entirety
was only-
of that UK audience.
Oh, it was a UK audience.
Both fighters are from the U.S.
Booed that song.
Fuck everyone.
I did
Fuck both these
not-
guys in the ring.
Why did they
not
have it in
understand
the UK
moment.
if both of the
I said,
fighters are from the
"We need to do
US?
something about this." And me, Jeff, and Andrew Schultz, we got on our chairs as high as we could, and we started singing that song, dude, as loud as we could. And we looked over, and you saw us.
Yeah, I saw you guys.
And you grabbed the American flag and started
From
waving.
the ring girl, I took her flag.
And in that moment, I said to myself, "This is America. This is what it's about. This is what it looks like to be back-to-back World War champions, Revolutionary War champion, motherfucker." And he was swinging that shit, and I was like, "Let's go." But then, when the UK national anthem came on, I stood up, I put my hand on my heart. I don't even know if you're supposed to do that. And I gave respect to the UK. We're friends. We're allies.
Yeah,
We've
God
always
save
come
the
to each
Queen.
other's sides. Y'all would be speaking German right now if it wasn't for us, but we'll leave that out of it, you know? So it was a bit of a strange moment for me. But KSI, because we do have some time shit here going on.
20 minutes.
I'll allow this to go 5 minutes longer, okay? 7:05. It's been pushed.
So wait, hold on a second. You're almost 60 years old, and you wake up, and then you decide I'm gonna wear a beanie today.
It was cold.
No, it's fucking cold. I've been wearing it for a couple days. You just haven't noticed, man. I got a bald ass head, bro.
I think
Well,
it's
you don't like
dope.
You ever been to Turkey?
Of course.
What the heck?
Yeah, man.
You ever been to Turkey?
Go to Turkey, bro.
What's in Turkey?
They'll plug you right up.
Oh, they'll fucking do my hair like you got. Oh,
You wanna go?
No, I'm good, dude. You know what I say? I'm not going bald. I'm getting more head.
This dude, he's got really good one-liners like
Yeah.
Milton.
They're great.
He
All
said
right.
to my he said to my girl the other day. He's like,
I
he
wonder
said,
if they're.
if
It
somebody
doesn't
calls you
seem like
pussy,
that
what'd you
they're going to
say?
be talking
So, yeah,
about.
we got to stop calling
Jesus
people
name,
pussies
Mark. So
that are
let's
weak. We got to
watch
call.
this right here. Well, I actually really like this YouTuber.
I'd like to thank Stitch Fix
one.
for taking care of the shopping.
For getting my fit just right. For finding me looks that work for me and my budget. Now getting dressed is so easy.
You just get
They get me.
You just get me.
And they'll get you too.
Take your style quiz today.
Logan Paul has some sort of encounter with Jesus right before the Dylan Dennis fight. So the Logan Paul Dylan Dennis fight was a complete dumpster fire, but what he said in his latest episode of the Impulsive Podcast after the fight has many taken aback, specifically that Jesus is showing Logan some things and that he may even feel convicted and want to reconcile with George Janko.
In the beginning of the fight, you said, "I forgive you, Dylan." That shit's hard, but did you mean that? Did you actually mentally tell yourself?
Like, he's wearing a shirt that says Saint. Is this the Christian arc of the Logan Paul story? How crazy would it be? There's been a lot of folks that have shared the gospel with this dude, man. Everybody from obviously George Janko, and a lot of folks behind the scene, and most recently Gideon, right?
I'm gonna forgive this guy, or you just put on a show?
So the major challenge for me in this fight, we knew, was that this guy got under my skin. How could he not? How could any person watch what he did to the person you love most in the world and be okay with it? And
I'm glad that he is acknowledging that he got under his skin, because he tried to act like he didn't get under his skin in those, the press conference and the talk. But he's being real that like this stuff with Nina got under his skin, which I understand why he would.
not want to actually murder this human being. But as I just described, I'm not that type of athlete. I'm not that type of person. When I lead with aggression and I'm fighting with emotion, I'm not in my best state. And when we did that face-to-face with the glass, he's standing across from me, and I learned that he roused me up. He brings out that side of me that goes, I want to kill this guy. And that's not good.
Have you tried that, though?
I tried, but then I just look stupid throwing wild punches, and then I get caught. I'd get caught with something, and he gets that knockout that the world was waiting for. It didn't happen. Like this story was not meant to be written that way. So I come back to the house and I'm like, damn.
And by the way, as a boxer, as any type of professional athlete, it's important to not lead with emotion. You got to really channel that emotion and channel that into
that is what all MMA
very specific,
teaches.
strategic approach. And so, the fact that he got under his skin and he was able to maintain himself, I think is a good thing.
It might be harder to flip that switch into calmness and tranquility and fighting with my mind, not my heart, than I thought. How do I do this? So me and Nina sat right over there. We had a meditation. And in this meditation, I'm sitting here, I go, how can I go into this as calm as possible and not want to fight with emotion? And this word kept coming to my mind, forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. And then, y'all are going to laugh at me. The internet's going to laugh at me, but bro, Jesus came into my mind. God, I swear.
Look at Mike. Wow. Interesting. What, is this the Jesus arc? I'm sure George has seen it. I'm gonna DM George after this to see what he thinks
Oh,
about
he
this.
knows
This
George
is crazy
from
talk. This is especially for
Logan
Logan,
Paul's.
who's been so hostile to Jesus.
Yeah. Let's go.
I swear to God, dude. I was like,
What a nice thing to hear on
I was
Sunday.
like-
About time.
I was like, Jesus is like,
Gosh, I just wish he wouldn't say effing Jesus, but that's okay. That's all right,
Yeah.
man. We're gonna take what we can get at this point from you, bro. Just
Oh,
give
wait.
your life to Jesus, Logan, please.
the
Damn it,
man
I
who
did
was
not mean to
master
do that.
forgiveness, the power of forgiveness. The whole religion was built on the power of forgiveness. Like the amount
Wow.
of followers he has because of this one principle that if you can grasp it, and it's hard to grasp. You know how
I
hard it
meant
was for
to
me
go
go
in and
I forgive
attack
you, bro.
those two.
I
That
forgive
sucked.
you for making my life hell. I
I should
forgive you
not
for
have
hurting
done
the
that.
person I love most in this world for months on end when she's done nothing to you. But I knew that if I could do it, and I knew that if I actually forgave him, I could enter this fight with a calm mind and just box. I'm not here to fight. It's just a guy, a nameless, faceless opponent, another hard spar, and I'm not going to go in there and fight with emotion. I'm just going to simply do my job in my office tonight, which happens to be a boxing ring.
Damn.
So I did mean it when I said I forgive him.
I'm glad you told me about the Nina part, that she knew that was coming, because
I would say if you forgave him, then I think there shouldn't
That
have
sucked.
been the weird post-fight trash talk. Like if you really forgive somebody, forgiveness is more about you letting go of the hostility
I didn't
and
see
less
the
about them
post-fight
needing to say something to you.
talk.
So that was the only part where like this feels a bit incongruent, because he definitely was like, if someone comes in your life and they're bad, you effing get them out of it. Like, I don't know.
if I were Nina watching that, I'd be like, what the
I told her.
You're forgiving him?
I said,
Kill this
I said, after the meditation, I said, I think I just found something real powerful, but I don't think you're gonna like it. She's like, what? I was like, I forgive him. I forgive him.
Damn. Imagine you walked into the fight with remember the Pokemon card, but with the Bible. and George. Together, bro.
George was there.
What?
George was there. He was looking down on us from
Well,
above.
and you know
No,
what? This
what?
might be the beginning of the reconnection of you and George.
Could be. And
You
he
know?
tweeted. Yo, he tweeted right after you won. What was it again?
God is real.
Jesus is real.
One of them.
Which
I
actually,
think
that's, but I will say this: if you had that epiphany and he tweeted that, I'm just saying, my
Wow, that's interesting. George Janko with the eerie tweets as Jesus is trying to get a hold of Logan's heart.
be a good time to rekindle the
George,
conversation.
George is one of my best friends, bro.
George is a
We
great
are so similar. Like I want the best for this guy, and like it's not doesn't feel uncommon that there may have been some sort of biblical, worldly ether crossing happening there. Like it made sense. Like I don't know. I was like, if I can forgive this dude, I'm gonna win this fight. And so yeah, I meant to. And Nina, by the way, I ran it by her. She was like, why would I be mad at that? And I was like, well, because like, you know, I don't know how you would react to me being.
Well, respectfully, Logan, I don't know if you're watching this, but if you forgive this dude, you need to drop that lawsuit. You need to drop that lawsuit. I understand that she felt violated, but like
That
in
is
the
true.
context of a fight and trying to bankrupt this dude, I would drop that lawsuit. Y'all tell me if I'm tripping for that.
Okay with the person who's made your life hell.
Didn't she say honey badgers don't care?
She said, I don't give a what you do.
You know, sometimes this value of forgiveness can, in a way, be almost appropriated by folks who aren't walking with Jesus. Like, as if forgiveness is something that makes you feel better about yourself, right? And the most famous passage in Scripture about forgiveness is actually in Matthew chapter 6, where
Oh, I literally just read this.
Yes. It's more of a
Huh.
Jesus
maybe
is doing the Lord's Prayer. In
Oh,
Matthew
yeah,
chapter
he's-
6,
he's
verse
talking
7,
about the
Jesus
Lord's
says,
Prayer,
when
yeah.
you pray, don't babble on as the Gentiles do. They think their prayers are answered merely by repeating their words again and again. Don't be like them, for your Father knows exactly what you need before you even ask him. Pray like this: Our Father in heaven, may your name be
He's
kept
reading the
holy.
whole-
May your kingdom come soon. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day the food we need, and forgive us our sins as we've forgiven those who sin against us. And so I think this is the heart, and we talk a lot about forgiveness within the Christian faith, but perhaps Logan may be missing the reality of what forgiveness means. I will take you guys to the Greek word forgive here, and I'm in my Blue Letter Bible app, so if we go here for the word forgive, the first thing we notice is that the word forgive is actually a verb, meaning it's not from this tranquil state of meditation that you feel peace and comfort. No. Forgiveness is an action. Forgiveness is something you are actively doing. So when it says, as we've forgiven those who've sinned against us in the Lord's Prayer, this is about action, okay? And if we look at this definition, look at some of these parallels, right? To let go, let alone, to let go, give up debt, forgive. Okay, so it's similar, the language is similar to forgive, to let go of a debt. Someone's holding a debt against you, you're letting it go. To give up,
I
keep
didn't
no
even think about
longer,
this when I
to
was
allow, to not hinder, to leave, go away from one, right? And so this is an active thing that we are called to do, which is to forgive those, which is an active thing we do in terms of forgiveness. Why? Because as followers of Jesus, we have been forgiven of much, and therefore we can give others who have sinned against us. And the beautiful part about all of this is that it's in the Lord's Prayer, which is Jesus instructing his followers on how to pray. Well, interestingly enough, when we designed our Bless God prayer journals, we actually followed the same exact format as the Lord's Prayer. We start off with gratitude, and then we pray for other people before we pray for ourselves. And we ultimately land in a place of giving God the glory. And so if you are looking to grow more consistent in your prayer time, consider picking up our Bless God prayer journal, available now in the tan and in the black at blessgodprayer.shop. Or if you can't afford it and you would just like to get the prompts in a PDF version, you can go to blessgodpdf.shop. I'll see you over there.
Biore blemish patches. Absorb pus and oil for visible results.
Big story here in Washington, D.C. is the fight or struggle to select a new House Speaker. Today, Congressman Jim Jordan failed to clinch enough votes to win the job. Again. The House is set to vote again. That will be a third time tomorrow at noon. This comes as CNN is learning that Jordan's opponents have been deploying an interesting strategy on how to pressure the Ohio Republicans to drop out. They're drawing straws for who will vote against Jordan on each
Let's watch a
ballot
few
so that the
clips of,
opposition to his candidacy
Logan Paul
appears
talking
to
to
grow.
other people
The
about
House has now been without a speaker for 2
about
weeks after
Christianity
Kevin McCarthy
before this.
You brought up God before, and before like we try to move off this topic, I just wanted to say, just not to like kind of breathe in good thoughts into your way, but these kids came into your life, and I guarantee you there's no money in the world that could replace these two gentlemen that are next to you.
No, facts.
So when
Gideon
the money gets
actually
put in front of you
gave
and
his
your
life
heart's
to
telling you
Christ
no,
just
remember
recently.
God could move faster and stronger than any money in the world could be offered to you. So whatever your heart's telling you to do, never let it move. And I know you say you move with wherever your audience is going, but sometimes the world kind of whispers the wrong thoughts. Even your audience does. Really listen to your heart. I'm very proud of you, dude. I really am. I'm very, very proud of you.
Wait, so you believe in God because he got you subscribers?
No, I believe in God because of just what he's done in my life.
He got you subscribers.
Not even that. No, it's just I was in a very dark place. Like I did not know where I was gonna go. Like I was stuck. I was like neck deep in mud, and I got pulled out. And I give all praises to him because I feel like whenever I don't put him first, that's when the most shit in my life happens. And it's so easy when like everything's going good.
It's a blessing you could see that, bro. That's such a blessing you could see.
You don't think you had anything to do with pulling yourself out of the mud?
There's only so much you can do. There's some things, like I'm pretty sure even in your career, you're just like, how did I do this? You know, the human body and mind can only do so much. There's some things where it's just like, there's some situations that just happen. It's just, it can't be by chance. It can't just be, you know, coincidental. Like, it's like, you know, whatever your higher power is in life, that's up to you to believe. But there's just moments in our lives where we all have to sit back and be, wow, how did this happen? How am I in this situation? How did I get out of this place where I thought I was gonna be trapped forever? And in my personal view, I just give all praises to the Most High because I feel like he's the one that does get me out those situations.
Retroactively, I totally get what you're saying. I can definitely look back and go, how did that possibly happen? On paper, that was impossible.
See? Logan Paul's demeanor has changed about this just as of recently, which is awesome. So loud. I hate how
This is my comeback.
Ads.
Start yours at produce.
How ads get way louder when
Of placing my belief and hope in the future in something external. For me, it comes from here. I want to do something, I'm going to go get it done. Sure, I'll manifest. Sure, I'll put the good energy out there. That's, you know, my version of God, the universe, good energy, karmic energy. Mm-hmm. And we all have a different thing, but I don't love the reliance
on something that I'm not sure about.
But you say reliance and stuff, but like even in the Bible, it doesn't say if you believe in me, you're gonna get all the best things in the world. It actually says if you believe in him, you might get the most persecuted. You might
come out the least.
But
yeah,
it
come out
says
the
that
least
you'll
in the
have
situation,
peace
so-
through everything.
You know who he is, bro?
Logan Paul.
King Saul.
King Saul.
He's King Saul, bro. When I see you, I always think of King Saul.
Logan Saul.
That's not a good thing.
What are you going on?
It's a big ad-lib day for my
That is not a good thing.
King
being
Saul,
King Saul.
basically, how I see you is, bro, like you can get it done, but you're not. Hopefully, you don't take this the wrong way. Your pride and ego will blind you from the higher power.
Honestly, fuck you, bro.
It will blind you from a higher power. You want to put it on you, and dude, I watch, and I tell you this all the time. I go, there's going to be a day where you do come and you're like gonna see it. But I'll say this to anybody because they always come up to me because I talk about Jesus all the time. They go, "How can I see Jesus?" I go, "The day you want to see Jesus, that's when you're gonna see Jesus."
That's awesome.
You just don't want to see him right
Hold
now.
on. I would love to see him present thyself.
And he did.
Imagine somebody just popped up.
And by the way, I pray.
Be careful how you say that because remember how he presents himself might not be how you want him to present it. It could be you in a coma.
All right, let's calm things down. Everybody just relax for a
And I
second
think
here,
that it's
right?
actually
We're in
a
this
good
rich
way for
mahogany.
society because, like, the kids who watched Logan Paul, seeing him say that and seeing that he won that fight right after he or maybe not accepted Jesus Christ, but found him and used him in a good way for that fight.
No, but I'm saying,
well,
be careful what you pray for, bro.
Facts.
Because listen, if there is a higher power, hypothetically, bro, you could bring you your knees real quick.
Hold on a second. Why does it have to be malicious?
Because,
all I'm saying,
bro,
like,
if there's
let's
a
go
higher
grab
power,
a
you
coffee.
said
Because
present
sometimes
yourself,
when
bro,
you
like
sometimes it might have to be malicious because
I've been there though.
No, but what I'm saying is sometimes we have to be at our lowest to be the most receptive to things.
I've been there, bro. I had fucking throw up, piss, chocolate milk, sweat, blood, and acid oozing out of my veins at Burning Man. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I'm pathetic. I'm a shell of myself. Where was Jesus then?
No, can I say something? Can I say something from someone who has also been through a thing or two? The heart. You say you don't like to rely on a third party thing, an external factor, right? You want to rely on what's inside you, and that's the same thing I relied on when I got off heroin. You know what I'm saying? When I crawled out of the fucking gutters of hell, right? But I found out very quickly that heart and soul that I rely on was put there by someone. So you can rely on your heart. You can rely on your soul, but just understand how it got there.
I know.
And understand
You're
who's
right.
infusing that
You're right.
with
I also
that
want
power. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I also want to say I'm being facetious
No, I know.
in providing a viewpoint.
Yeah,
I pray, dude. Every single night I pray. You know, I wouldn't label myself as being under a certain discipline of religion, but I believe in God and I pray.
Just a quick question.
You in the back.
Have you ever read the Bible?
If there was some sort of audiobook, I definitely still wouldn't listen to it.
If your father, God forbid, far from here, ever passed away, and he wrote you a journal, and if you wrote your journal, talking to you,
My dad writing a journal.
He's in a coma.
See how hard is it to talk to, like,
I mean, bro, can you just use it more relaxed?
Is anyone in my family still alive in your scenario?
His dad stubbed his toe, let's say. His dad stubbed his toe.
All right, go ahead. So my dad's limping now.
So he's limping, and he goes off into a journey, right? He's alive. He's living his dreams, but he's off on a journey. You guys can't really communicate. He leaves you a journal of like, hey man, this is how I think you should kind of see me as. If you don't ever want to pick it up and read it, you don't want anything to do with him. So you say present yourself. He presented himself. You just choose not to see it.
No, I'm joking. I'm bro.
Every time I counterpoint, you go, I'm joking.
Because
I'm being facetious.
I am being
George
facetious.
is really mad today.
Because God has played a very big part in my life. I just don't know if I see it the way that you see it.
That's because okay. When we were here and we were talking about what we were doing, everybody was doing their thing last night. What was I doing?
You were kicking your feet up, laying on your stomach, reading the Holy Bible.
At night when I'm in London, and the reason why is because
And Mike was having a threesome.
And I do turn down the money, and I do walk away from situations, is because I am a part of it as so much in my life that I could look at situations and be like, I could see him everywhere I go. Every single situation.
But you go to church? You don't got time for church.
Okay, so
devil's avocado.
Like, you know, I mean, I don't want to like, cause I hate spewing like I don't want to put my my viewpoints and my religious views on other people. I like to like do it as where I like call it planting a seed, where I just say something, and then like, you know, it'll take over from there on out. And
You
stuff
get
like
redwoods from them seeds. You plant the right seeds, you can get some big trees.
This is
impulsive. Oh, okay. But like you saying like you don't believe in stuff like that. I was so confused on that. But like I'm like you had me stumped there for a second.
Dude, he's spazzing today.
You plant the right seeds.
But like basically what I was saying is like, you know, I don't take offense, like, you know, you saying you don't believe in stuff like that, because like, you know, everybody believes in their own thing, you know, and then you have people like that believe in other religions. You know, I'm not gonna tell someone what to believe in, but all I know is whenever I have a platform, I just put the Most High first, because that's just
how you're living.
What I want to give.
Yeah.
That's just what I want to put out first.
Would you identify as Christian?
Yeah.
You? I believe that you believe in a higher power. I believe that it's not a god. I believe you think it's a force, an energy, and you're trying to put together where our energy goes afterwards, and you're still in the midst of putting that together. I listen to you. Have I ever bashed that?
No.
Never. I never would. And I believe that your energy is the same of me. But this is the way I want all of us to like be together. Like at the end of the day, bro, I can never prove to you that Jesus Christ exists. I can never do that. You can never prove that your belief system exists. What we could do is have like-minded conversations and grow from it. And I want there to be love in the conversation instead of like, because like if we pick on each other and other things, it's totally fine. Like you suck at comedy, I get that. Everybody knows that. All that stuff. But when it comes to religion, you have to be tiptoe.
No, I don't.
Well, I do with anybody. And by the way, you brought up like Muslims and Jews. Dude, I sit at synagogues and talk to rabbis all the time, pick their brains. I sit with Muslim people. They're the most peaceful people. We went to Saudi Arabia.
Right? I want you to say it right now.
Who's right?
Whose God is real?
My God is real in my eyes.
Year after year, abrasive toothpastes can damage your teeth. Switch to gentler Arm & Hammer toothpaste. It's gentle on enamel, tough on plaque, for a smile that can defy time.
Being a non-binary person that sometimes has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this. You can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting that I thought this was a trans debate. That's what I thought.
Non-binary people.
Non-binary
I wonder if Blair White is in this.
Yeah.
Is that Blair White
I don't know,
right
you can
there?
educate yourself a little bit on that.
I think I could
and
educate
maybe then you
you.
would figure
I think I
out,
could educate
you know, what
right?
reality is.
Oh, whoa. It is a safety concern for trans women to share a female restroom. Can the agreeers please step forward?
Before we begin this episode, we know there's been a lot of anticipation for this topic.
That is why we're excited to release an extended cut of this episode featuring all prompts on our Middle Ground Patreon.
This is something that you guys have been asking us about for years, and we're excited to finally be able to do it. And when you support our Patreon, you help us to make Middle Ground a show that truly provokes understanding and creates human connection.
And that is the point of Middle Ground. So now let's get into the video.
Forward.
Oh.
It depends.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I think that to start it off though too is it's not necessarily saying that trans women, it all comes down to self-ID. When we moved into a self-ID process, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of men just simply self-IDing into being trans women to utilize the female restroom and to harm women. I think
Or
that's the
just
biggest
be
thing.
there. They're getting arousal from just being there.
You know, there was a photo or it was a video that went viral, I think like just 2 weeks ago, with some like whole man with a boner in the women's restroom. And there's just some
That's
poor
fucking
woman filming it.
disgusting.
Like, am I just supposed to like accept that this is here? So I think there's levels to it. I think that trans women who are actually trans, you know, we're talking gender dysphoria, transitions, making the effort, you know, probably once you reach a certain point in your transition where you can actually assimilate within that space and not cause a disruptance, that would probably be the ideal time to start doing that, right? Whereas, you know, a cross-dresser who is emboldened to, in this current climate, say that they're trans because now anything is trans if you say so, that person should probably stay absolutely out of women's restrooms because you're there to get your rocks off and the women are there to take a poop and a pee. So it's not the same. And you know, I really empathize with women who, you know, have an issue with it. And I can probably hear some women commenting, well, how do I know the difference between a fetishist and a real trans person? It's hard. It's hard. However, that's the only nuance that I know to give to it, which is there's different reasons people are trans, and some people really are trans because they're horny, and some people are trans because they really felt that way from, you know, a young age or whatever.
See, I agree to an extent. Like, when you go to transition, and this is a fairly universal experience, you know, once you get to a certain point of passing, that's about the time that you would start going into the other bathroom as opposed to not make the same sex uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Once you reach that point in your transition, a lot of things change, but you know, you start to see things from another perspective. You start to see things from the perspective of a cis person.
Yeah.
And I actually offer some solutions to this because I believe the free market can handle all of this stuff, because in government-run and government-funded buildings, there should always be a third space for us to use. And I do. When I go to the Capitol and stuff like that, I always use third spaces. But I think that private property owners can make the rules for their establishment and figure out how to enforce those rules.
I mean, I wouldn't say third spaces for trans
exactly.
people.
Like, we're in a state
in
right
general.
now. We're in a state right now where you have to allow anybody to use whatever restroom they want.
If you're a decent human being, you do what causes the least disturbance. So for example, I filmed a YouTube video a few years ago where I entered a men's restroom just because I was responding to comments who were like, well, maybe you should use a men's restroom if you really feel like the way you feel. And so I said, okay, let's do it. Let's put a camera. And I was kicked out within seconds of the entire establishment, and it was a whole ruckus. So that's what I mean by, if you're a decent person, you do what causes the least amount of problems for people around you. And if you're, you know, a moral person, you're going to be conflict avoidant in general when it's something like that, right? It's like, what's the point of causing issues for anyone, especially if you're really just trying to pee,
just put
get
your
it
head
done.
down, go in, get out.
Right.
Can the disagreeers please step forward?
I think we're in an Airheads commercial. Want to skip it?
With Airheads, you can't not play, even in a skip ad.
Airheads have more fun.
The ParentingMontana.org podcast talk about the challenges and the joys of being in a parenting role in Montana.
I want to comment on Blair's point. The one thing I kept hearing through all of the nuance is passability. Because ultimately, when we talk about passability, it determines how you get harassed in the bathroom. Because honestly, if you don't look so passable or whatnot, people are going to say, oh, that's a man with a dress on, and then there's going to be discourse. But the reality of it is, honestly, who cares who's trans and who's cis going in the bathroom? You should be minding your own business, being able to pee and do your business in peace, for the most part. That conversation around this man with a boner on or whatever like that, I saw that picture and I thought to myself, that's really a right-wing talking point and conservative propaganda, because that's their ideology when it comes to trans. I'm speaking. That's their ideology when it comes to trans. It's because conservatives have a basic level understanding of what transness is in the first place. And with all due respect, I do not think any of you are basic, but they use you as the baseline to amplifying this propaganda.
How is it propaganda if it's a thing that really happened? It was caught on video. Like, it was an actual occurrence. It wasn't staged. It happened, and that's not the only. It's not an isolated incident.
But that's not enough for me to say, because actors can do that. Who knows? They could have been an actor trying to make a point against trans people. But this has always been our battle. It's just like, from what I just heard you were saying with your talking points, because I did understand what you were saying. I just got the word passability out of there, and
which I didn't say that word at all.
No, I'm saying that word.
He said passability.
I'm saying
she didn't say it. He did. And the problem.
Well, they're even
I'm
confused about
I just couldn't hear
what their
what I was saying was
liberals' genders are.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you said that word. What I was getting out of what you were saying, the one word that was coming to me was passability. This is Blossom saying it. And so passability politics is really a thing in our trans community, especially when we come to the debate of restrooms.
Well, you can say it's politics, but actually it's just real life, right? It's just about
Correct.
where
I
you're
agree.
able to assimilate to and where you're not. And I think one of the biggest problems in the trans community is the community by and large has seemed to reject assimilation and seems hell-bent on...
That's not true.
I think it's absolutely true, which is you see people talking about how you don't need to work on your transition at all to enter women's restrooms. And I think that that is so selfish.
That drives
so
me crazy.
It's so disregarding of women who may or may not feel uncomfortable.
But the trans woman experience is not monolithic, so who are we to
I don't know
police
what you would do
transness?
with like someone like Blair White who looks
Why are we
like a
policing other
woman.
people's trans
I'm
and
just
how they
listening to
show
women.
up?
We have to
But why
protect
we-
women.
Why are y'all policing though? That's what I don't understand.
But you're using words
there's
that we're not
policing.
using. It's not policing. We're listening
is
to
policing.
women, and if you have 50%, we won't say 50%, but if you have a large chunk of the population of women saying that they are uncomfortable with a certain thing, a good person leans in and listens.
So
They
why are
don't
you
just
not listening
reject
to
it.
other trans women, Blair?
I
think
do
that's-
all day. I am
okay,
right
so,
now.
But you didn't, and I'm not trying to be combative or whatever like that. I'm just trying to figure out, you know what I'm saying, what the middle ground would be between you and I, because you said one side and that's great, but what about the side of trans women? If we're not bringing both sides into this conversation,
Here's what I would say
then it
then.
is unbalanced.
Here's what I would say then, because I do understand both sides. I didn't, I'm almost a decade into my transition, which means I was one time a year in, 6 months in, 2 months in. So I understand that, but I also knew at the very beginning of my transition that if I'm not at a place physically where I'm not making people feel uncomfortable, or I'm making people uncomfortable, then
Right.
that's on me. That's my
Correct.
responsibility to make sure that I'm going places a certain way to make sure that they're comfortable.
Because it's for
It
your
was my
safety
respons-
also, too, right?
Well,
Would you also say
can-
that you're safe?
Well,
your safety
I know that
plays a part.
you seem to be looking at through the lens of always trans being the priority, and I'm looking at it through the lens of women being the priority here. There's
But
plenty of situations.
Why? I just want to know
Because
why
it's them who
around
would
that.
fall victim to not actual trans women, as I said, but people posing as trans women, people who are
But trans
actually
women are
trans.
also victims of that as well.
I'm sorry. I would love it if the two of you have said your piece, and I would love to hear.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah,
else
yeah. I
needs
just
to
want to
talk.
make this
Nobody
point.
else is
I just
talking.
want to make this point as well. But trans women also experience violence and also need that
doubt.
protection, and so that's the
Everyone
thing. Like, it
experiences
should be
violence.
an even playing field. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is I would like to challenge you to expand to make sure you're being inclusive of both sides or whatever, because we have to have these important conversations between cis women and trans women.
I mean, I
and I'm
think-
just gonna say, and I'm not gonna just say cis women. I'm gonna say women, biological women. I want to make it inclusive of everyone.
I think the middle ground, though, is, and I feel like I'm not coming at this from an extreme place. I feel like an extreme place would be like no trans women in the bathroom ever. That's the extreme position. I'm saying work on your transition, take it as your responsibility, and be respectful. And that's the middle ground, right?
This is a self-preservation issue, right? So if somebody's in the bathroom and they have a boner, that looks bad on all of us. And when people, and when our community's not calling that out and not saying that this is
But
wrong.
how many, I'm just,
No,
to
I
your
get
point,
it.
how many cases has that occurred?
It happens. It happens a lot. We see it's happening all the time.
No, I
There-
have to
there are-
actually see,
there are-
I have to
there
actually
are
see
Twitter
data.
accounts.
I'm sorry, because I just want to make the picture the back and forth goes everywhere.
I mean, there's Twitter accounts with millions of followers that show this stuff multiple times
Okay,
a day.
now I know what we're talking about.
And so we're showing that these types of things do actually cause harm to trans people. So if you're looking at it at a trans lens and to say, what are we doing? We need to combat that stuff and come together to combat that
It does
stuff.
not encompass the entire trans experience.
No,
and
you're
that's all
right.
I just want to say.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of different points from everybody here. Honestly, like I can understand like how some women may feel unsafe with men in their
What is
in
that
the restroom.
supposed to be?
Men. When I say men, I
I'm
mean men.
confused.
I'm not talking about trans
Is
women.
that-
So being a non-binary person that sometimes
Wow.
has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this, looking like this. You can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting. I thought this was a trans debate. That's
Oh,
what I
don't
thought.
even.
Non-binary
That's what I thought.
people
No,
are-
I
people
will
are part of
say
the
that.
trans
I will say
umbrella.
that.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you could educate yourself a little bit on that.
I think I
and
could
maybe
educate
then you would figure out.
I think I could educate
you know what
right?
the reality is
I'm
and what
sure
trans
there's
actually
a
means.
non-binary Jubilee episode.
This is not a blue moon. Now it is. Now it's not. Now it is. Now it's not. Now it is. Blue Moon presents Bring Your Own Orange. Bring an orange, get a beer.
Wow, it's
Well, because it's not a debate about who is really trans and who is not.
It can be.
We're talking about restrooms. As a trans, non-binary person, when I go into a place that only has men's and women's restrooms, and I'm dressed like this, my choice to go into the men's restroom at that point puts me in danger.
6 years ago when I was transitioned almost 8 years ago, but 6 years ago, it was never an issue for me to use the women's room. Girls would literally drag me in there with them and say, girl, you need to be in our bathroom. And I was like, I felt uncomfortable back then. I don't pass. I know I don't pass, so that's a me problem. And I'm not gonna turn my fear of being attacked in the men's room into a woman's problem. It's still a me problem, so I need to work on myself. And it sucks. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. But I still respect women enough, and some trans people aren't capable of handling themselves against a man, but I am confident in my ability to do that. And not everybody can, I get that. But it's just now, 6 years ago, I used to use the women's room. Now I don't, because women have spoke out. They've come out and said, we're not comfortable. There's too many self-ID'd people out there just taking advantage. And I choose to use the men's room to protect them.
I can definitely actually almost empathize with a lot of trans women and their experience in the bathroom and a lot of the turmoil with going in and you know, especially with passability. But the layer that I feel like in the conversation that's missing here is actually trans men. And also the fact that I was born biologically female, and a lot of the things that trans women experience of violence in the bathroom is what I experienced as a child. So the reason why my education here is not necessarily to create an idea that I need to conform to Eurocentric standards. Myself, I'm a 6 foot tall trans man, size 13 shoe, so I don't fit into the Eurocentric standards of what a woman is, and I never did as a child. I was you know, bullied relentlessly for this and isolated from many spaces. So this discussion about trans women being in the restroom also affects biological women, because guess what? You know, biological women come in all shapes and sizes. There are, you know, a lot of lesbian women that deal with this issue that I've related with and empathize, because we both get pulled out of the restroom and thrown, and guys try to beat us up because we're in a restroom with women. And then on top of it, to add that layer,
that would look
it's
weird
not even being discussed in any mainstream, that this is just completely wiped out, and that you're standing up for women, but you're not standing up for women children.
That is where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to do, is when they're someone who looks like that, then it's like, should they? Because I don't know. It's just confusing. I think that they kind of just need to make unisex single bathrooms now. Honestly,
biological females that are children, you're only standing up for what really affects you. And it's kind of sad that the idea that passability is you need to work on your transition. A lot of folks, especially in our community, have no access to finances, resources, jobs, to even get their foot in the door to get access to hormones. So you're putting all of these barriers just for them to be able to go to the restroom, which is a natural thing that we all have to do. So what do I need to do? Piss outside? Because that's how I was treated my entire childhood.
I would. I just feel like when this whole topic comes up, like, it obviously goes back to, like, there's dudes like jerking off in the bathroom, and like, to me, like, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, like, but that's not trans women. So when we talk about this conversation, and it seems like the fear is like literally cisgender straight men who are being creeps, and what sucks is cis straight men can be like creepy, and then it's like trans women, trans men are like paying the price for that, and I feel like, you know what, that's what's really hard about it, is because then I think people get the idea, or some people have the belief trans women are just like, they're just men in dresses, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, for so many trans women and so many trans men, the safest place for them is the bathroom that aligns with their gender. And if you go to a place where it's illegal to do that, or you have to go and like, what's your ID, or like your birth certificate, it puts you in an objectively unsafe situation. And for me, like, I'm like, if I walk in the women's room, I mean, I know I like look like a lot, like I look 12, but like I feel like someone would be like, get out of here, you know what I mean? But like, that's the vibe. Like, I think you got to remember, like, when we're talking,
I feel like this type of conversation is kind
For every cup of Too Good you buy, you're helping donate food to fight hunger.
Who are you talking to?
Boring.
You, babe. Always talking to you. And you. 51 million meals. And counting.
Ban. Agreeers?
I think that oftentimes when you talk about trans people in the military, people forget that most places, if we're talking about feet on the ground and really going into war zones, are really dangerous for trans people. And so it's really an extra risk.
You're talking about the culture that exists over
there.
there.
The Middle East, you know, it's
so
like that's not exactly
the
trans-friendly.
place
It's
for
actually
us,
the opposite. the medications that we take sometimes put us in conflict with being able to actually be combat
Yeah, I
ready.
don't think that-
But there is some nuance here, obviously.
I also don't
like if
think
there
that
was a
women
trans
should
cook
be in the
or a
military
trans
either. So
medic, I'm not exactly going to be upset. But for the most part, when it comes to combat,
I hate supporting, like what you just said, I hate supporting it because it goes to the narrative of the should athletes compete in sports, you know, but
trans athletes?
yeah,
They
the
shouldn't.
drugs we take do weaken us, you know, so we're not,
Mhm.
like you just said, combat ready, but we're also not as physically strong as the guy
They're
counterparts
also mentally
standing right next to us.
And I will say, like, as a person with HIV, I was diagnosed at 18. I couldn't go into the military.
Yeah.
Like, because I couldn't get Biktarvy overseas, you know?
Yeah, so I will say, as probably the only person that served in the military on this entire panel.
You should have spoke first.
It's okay. The thing about it is, I think that there is a lot of nuance in this. I actually have friends that are currently serving in the military. I think there was a lot of misrepresentation of what the trans ban actually did. You know, you have soldiers, if you have surgeries, they go on profile, which means they can't actually do their job. They can't do PT. If you have bottom surgery, it takes a year. And so as a leader, that person's filling a position of a job of somebody that should be doing it. I don't mind somebody who is actually on hormones going there because there's a lot of people. I mean, people take PTSD medications overseas. They actually take 6 months of medication with them. So a full-out ban, I don't necessarily support because I think that everybody in the military, as long as you can do your job, you can go in there and nobody really cares. But it is those times when if you can't perform your job, that becomes an issue. You talk about with HIV, actually, most people don't even realize this. If you contract HIV while you're in, you can stay in a non-deployable job.
Right. And then also, you know, if we want to just get super real, you have the trans suicide rate. And if you really want to compound that by the veteran suicide rate, that's not exactly a concoction for very positive results.
Content
So
ID
I see how a trans ban could actually benefit us. And Lord knows I'm not trying to get drafted. So yeah, I'm all good with that.
Period. Yeah.
I think it's very discriminatory to keep trans people out of the military. We pay our bills here, we pay our taxes here, we are Americans. We deserve to serve this country as well. However,
You? I believe that you believe in a higher power. I believe that it's not a god. I believe you think it's a force, an energy, and you're trying to put together where
when you turn on Content ID, automatically claims against other user upload content that matches. What is this? So, one sec. I'm trying to figure out something on here. I'm gonna lose this. Damn it, I lost. Well, I'm still streaming, so I thought that it said that I... I'm confused. Let me play that again and see if that happens again.
With that period, yeah.
I think it's very discriminatory to keep trans people out of the military. We pay our bills here, we pay our taxes here, we are Americans, we deserve to serve this country as well. However, you all did raise some great points about the concern and safety of trans people. And I do agree that something does need to be done about that to protect us. Who's protecting us in the military?
Regulating trans medical care.
I think there's 3 types of doctors out there. I think there are the ones who absolutely think that they're doing this for the right reasons. I think that there are the ones who are absolutely doing it for money, like we saw at Vanderbilt. The people at Vanderbilt literally said this is a huge moneymaker. And then I think that there are, I don't know if it's incompetence or ineptitude or laziness, because what we're seeing, not just in the trans community, we're seeing in society, SSRIs being pushed on patients. Mental health doctors are pushing so many different drugs without getting to the root issues.
See, I have an interesting perspective on this. I've been out for 11 years this year. I've been on testosterone since I was 15 years old. And even looking into it, I waltzed my little ass up into that doctor's office and I left on testosterone. He gave me my first shot in the doctor's office that day. Oh my gosh. I was 15 years old. What if I had been wrong? What if I had been wrong? It really just is that simple.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Wow, nice to see you.
That happened.
I think like it's not. I don't think it's like a huge widespread issue, but I think when we have like a for-profit healthcare system, it does happen. Like I feel like there are. I believe that people should be evaluated and go through tests. And like for me, getting on testosterone and getting surgery was a massive process in my life. But I do think that it probably happens. Just like you said, like with SSRIs and stuff, like things are overprescribed.
So I do think it's a massive issue. I think that society in general, as Sarah mentioned, is over-medicalized right now.
I think
We're
we
in this
should
weird
definitely
climate
just
where
ban
there are entire political movements behind
transgender
if you do or
surgery
you don't
for
have a
children.
vaccine. You can't enter this building if you do. You can if you do. You know, it's like crazy.
Any form.
But you know, when it comes to the trans issue, I think just the fact that there were really almost no detransitioners as recent as like 5-6 years ago. And the fact that it's exploded now shows that it is a massive issue. And, you know, I think that I can reflect what you said. I was over 18 when I started my
Well,
hormones,
maybe it just
but I had
people
a
haven't
20-minute
didn't
appointment,
come
and just
out
like you,
and
I
say
walked
that
in
they
and
were
out with an estrogen prescription.
detransitioners, but
Insane. I wasn't tested
I didn't
for my
have to
levels.
see a therapist first.
No.
I had no letter.
And you were a child.
I was a
That's
child.
crazy.
I was
So,
15
and
years
that
old.
is a very,
in
very
one of the most
common-
conservative states in the country. So if that's what's going on
Wow.
in
I wonder
Georgia,
what. Oh, in Georgia.
imagine what's going on everywhere else.
California.
Yeah,
hello.
that would
when
be
I
fucking.
went for
that
my
is crazy.
initial appointment, I literally helped my doctor find gender dysphoria on his chart and mark it for me.
That's insane.
And I walked out with my prescription that day.
I mean, because I do a lot of work with the D-trans community, and the problem is I actually don't really care too much about, you know, if you are an adult and you walk into a doctor's office and want estrogen and you walk out, I don't think that's an issue. What is an issue is when doctors are not giving all the information, when they're actually telling you that this is what's right for you, and then it's not. They're actually manipulating their patients. They're manipulating, you know, they say if you don't do this, you're gonna kill yourself, and all this stuff. So I would actually rather a doctor say, I have no idea what this is gonna do to you, but it's your body, your choice, you can do what you want, and then leave you on your way and you can make that decision.
Right.
I think they're not asking the patient why. Why do you feel this way? It's a simple question.
Another thing I was never informed of, you know, when I started my hormone journey, and now it seems, you know, like common sense, but I was, you know, 20, so it's like, you know, even 20-year-olds can have oversights. No one told me I had to freeze my sperm.
That's crazy.
So
Remember you
I'm
talked
years
about that.
into estrogen. I reached the point of adulthood where you maybe meet a
gross.
partner where that might be something you want to do, and I learned that I can't. And it's simply because that doctor
seems wrong.
didn't care to
I
tell
don't
me.
think that they
And
should be
why?
having
Who knows?
children
Maybe it was
after
because of money. It was
they-
easier for him or better for him to
they
get
be
me in and
doing
out,
any
get
of
that
these
money, rather
things.
than maybe a couple more appointments where I'm having to figure out, you know, how to freeze my sperm in the meantime. But a lot of these doctors are also activists.
They also
they're-
don't tell trans men that they're going to go through menopause.
Right. There's a lot of issues with trans men. Buck Angel talks about that.
He
a
almost
lot of
died.
issues.
Like,
Yeah,
he's
he
a
almost
friend
died.
of mine. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Insane.
So I actually almost walked up first because I do feel like the system is like pretty broken and there's not enough education in the medical system for doctors to be prescribing all the things that they do. Again, discussing SSRIs, like I was a victim of that myself. And so, you know, I empathize for those stories. I understand that that does happen. I'm not negating that. But I think to negate,
Yeah, I don't think that it should be legal.
you know,
for
medical
children
service to somebody
do
who
any
needs
form
it,
of.
who it might be life or death for, just because you feel some type of way about it, isn't right. Like, why do you care what, you know, little Timothy or Sally are doing or whatever? Like, why do you personally care what?
Well, Timothy and
Well, they're
Sally are
children,
in
They live in
clubs, so.
my country, and I care about.
Sorry, we're doing no comments.
His name was Cain. He had a horse along.
What is going on in my country?
But we're not talking about children 7 or 12, and this doesn't happen often. Has it happened? Yeah, it has, because that's the thing. It's a big world. Like, things happen all the time, things we can't even imagine happen. It just is a reality. But again, to walk through a door and then close it for other people to walk through, that's kind of messed up, in my opinion.
So to your point for being able to receive hormone therapy in the way that you did, I had a similar experience. I was able to walk in and get access to hormones. And that system was set up through advocacy because of what a lot of community folks are actually facing when it comes to access to hormones, access to medical care, access to all of these things. So a lot of these nonprofits actually got rid of a lot of the red tape, because for some individuals like myself who was actually homeless during my transition process, I would have never been able to afford access or get through all of this process. Now, can I admit that there is some medical malpractice? Yes, I myself had issues obtaining testosterone consistently. You know, for some reason, you know, the script doesn't match up, or you got to get in contact with a doctor. And it was part of the reason why I chose actually to go off testosterone, because I didn't like the idea of not having constant access, because I was worried about the damage that it could cause to my body, and also because I wanted to keep intact my reproductive rights. From what I have seen when it comes to these detransitioners, from my understanding in terms of the statistics, trans people are 8% of the population, and then the detransitioners are somewhere from 1 to 8% as well. So all of these laws that are coming in is to affect the entire community as a broad, while the percentages that we're affecting people is so small. While simultaneously, if we looked at things like in the past, like HIV with things like AZT drugs that were harming folks, those folks went through all of those processes and learned the research of what it was to properly take care of HIV through that unfortunate, horrible, horrific process.
I mean, it was basically chemo.
Yeah, I mean, AZT was killing people and they had no clue what we're doing. Now, unfortunately, because trans people have not got access to medical transition as long, and especially in the transmasculine community, there's a lot of research that has not been done. So to a degree, yes, we are guinea pigs in the shot in the dark. But just like in the 80s when AZT was being discovered, or 90s when it's being discovered, those folks had to go through that process. And I was given informed consent and understood that when I signed that.
We just don't know, because the studies aren't there, like you said, right? So
Yeah,
the
no,
problem is when you talk about like the detransition rate, what generally
And if the
happens
studies
is there's no
aren't there, I
follow-up.
feel like
The
it's a
longest study that's
giant
been done
risk
is
to
5
be
years
doing
out.
these
The average
to children.
detransition happens between 4 and 10 years. So we're not capturing all of that.
And
Plus,
it's just
if you
also
haven't
wrong
had your primary sex
and
organs
evil.
removed, you literally just stop taking hormones, and then you never go see your doctor again. And so they never follow up, and you just fall off the rolls. So the stats on detransition is completely false.
So I want to say something. First of all, I want to empathize with everyone here when it comes to healthcare system, because it's not always for us. I don't think that doctors are manipulating trans care. I think they're still learning about trans care.
Oh, I definitely
And to
think
your
they are.
point, they're
making
not a lot
money
of
off
research
of
because the
it.
research is still new and fresh. You know, detransitioning is a thing, but truth be told, detransitioning is actually rare when it comes to not just wanting to be trans anymore. Now, the underlying factors within that is healthcare conditions, which I actually heard a trans man who is famous talk about, you know very well. I agree with what y'all were saying, because these issues are very, very real, but also I think it's really because doctors are still learning about our experience.
So I just have to say some things that were brought up about detransitioners, which I found just a little bit ironic, right? Because for a community that is 1% or less of the general population, we can never seem to find it within ourselves to find empathy for it, even if it is the 1% of our community, which is detransitioners, and for the horrific medical malpractice, abuse, mental and spiritual turmoil they go through. It's like, so we want the rest of the world to say this 1% matters, but our 1% doesn't matter. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's not as if they detransition because of, just like you said, the loosening of all the restrictions to get on these drugs. It's like, that's not a good thing. Gatekeeping is a good thing. Like making sure the right people are getting on these drugs so there aren't regret cases.
I don't think that
aren't
there is
botched
any
cases.
right people
That's what we
getting
have
on
to
these
go towards,
drugs,
because
though.
right now we're going down the slippery slope of,
But obviously these
anyone can get
trannies
on
would
it. Every
think
single
that there
person
was
here, I'm
right
pretty
people to be
sure,
getting on the drugs,
just stated
but I
that
don't think
they went
anyone
in
should be
and walked out in an hour or
transitioning
less to get their
or
hormones, and that's a
being,
huge problem,
you know,
especially a child.
Because of things that have happened to
Yeah,
me,
at
I can see
15,
a
it's
future
crazy.
where transitioning for adults is banned. Like, I can't
Based
because of
on,
everything
you
that's
know,
going on with kids.
Yeah, I think most of us are against
That would be
a
fucking
ban on
sweet.
stuff like that. Obviously,
Yeah,
we're all sitting
obviously,
here for a
but-
reason.
Base.
I think I had the common ground though, because everybody here kind
Oh,
of also
shit.
admitted that we don't have the research, and so when we don't have the research, and I'll tell you, I think that adults can do what they want, but I think we don't push forward with transitioning children until we have the research. We do the research. And this is actually what GenSpec pushes as well. GenSpec organization, they push to get more research on it, so we absolutely know what this does. Because even the WPATH guidance, the latest guidance from WPATH, everything that it says even about puberty blockers, it cites a study, and then it says we don't know.
To your point about gaining research, how do you expect the medical community to gain access to research if we're just preventing these folks to actually go through any of the processes to learn the scientific method of what is happening? Just like with AZT drugs, where we learned that that was actually harming us, and now we have things like Biktarvy.
Yeah, so it's the same way as we have with any research. You have a very select, very heavy gatekeeping crew that you're allowed to, you know, create these studies around. And you need a good checklist to be like, these people show all the actual signs of gender dysphoria. They are having like very
A mental
strong
illness.
distress, you know, and
I
every
think that
state
there's
that's
other
passed
ways
bans, on access for minors also has
I
provisions.
think that there
except
should
for
be
in the
other
most
ways
extreme-
that we treat gender dysphoria rather than transitioning children.
cases to conduct studies on.
Gender affirming transition is suicide prevention.
Fuck no. They still be killing themselves.
I mean, obviously, it's a known thing that trans youth are at greater risk of suicide and just suicidal ideations, which are horrible and will plague you and like ruin your life and make it awful. And so I know there are a lot of kids in a lot of pain, and growing up as a trans kid, I was in so much pain, and I feel like I could have been spared of a lot of that and gotten to enjoy my life a lot more if I had earlier access to gender-affirming care. And even the gender-affirming care that I did receive later in my life, and I went on hormones when I was like 16 and I got top surgery at 17, that completely changed my life in the most dramatic way. And so yeah, I think it is life-saving care, and I think a lot of trans people would agree.
I agree as
Definitely
well too.
not.
I think gender dysphoria is a real thing, and we all deal with gender dysphoria differently. I know for myself or whatnot, there were times I wanted to end it all, and for me, I went to desperate measures to align my body with how I feel on the inside. And for some of us, especially living in the South, we don't
That
always have
fucking
access to hormone care. So some of us have to go to the black market. We have to do things to our body to be able to align us to where we are not willing to commit suicide.
Bro.
I don't think that's the only way. I think there are other ways as well too, but honestly, sometimes people just want somebody that cares, that wants to listen
That was
as
gay.
part of the regimen to
Almost as gay as
being
this
able
shit
to
right here.
prevent suicide.
I've chosen to not medically transition in my bottom half, let's put it that way. But, and this is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud, but I am having facial feminization surgery. And that was an incredibly, ridiculously difficult journey, even as an adult who has a really good job and access to really great health care. But I still had to go through so many hoops, and I was still denied by insurance. And in my own personal life, I've also struggled quite a bit with mental health, and you know, a lot of that really relates to the certain parts of my body. Like I always hated my body when I was younger, and I didn't understand why. And you know, and I was always dressing, you know, as like a cis male, and I just had all this stuff just didn't fit. It just didn't feel right, and it was just like this darkness in my life. Like I just wanted it, you know, gone. And I just learned to live with it. But then eventually, like, you know, after figuring out who I am and all that, like now I know like this is life-saving care. Like this for me is life-saving care. Like who knows where I could be in a few years had I not known who I am and had access to care.
You just want to
how y'all doing?
Disform yourself, and you think that that's
I think
care?
too often we hear, you know, that if we don't affirm our child's, you know, gender identity that's different than their sex, then they're going to commit suicide. We hear this all the time, especially from the detransition community whose parents were told this and it was manipulative. We hear politicians say this all the time when they're trying to, you know, stop bills or pass bills. The problem with that is that's the same line that abusers use. So when you're in a relationship, if you're going to leave somebody and they say, if you leave me, I'll kill myself, then that is an abusive situation. And it's not, you know, so that's the premise we start with. Transition, I mean, we're all here, we know. Transition is not an easy process. It takes a heavy mental toll. And so I really think that you have, if you're already suicidal, you have to get that in check. You have to be in a healthy place before you can even think about going through the medicalization of transitioning. You can socially transition. I think that's absolutely fine. But I think that, you know, before you even think about medically transitioning, then I think you have to have your head right before that. And hormones will make you feel kind of crazy anyways. So I think that that's why, it's not.
Crazy. See, when it comes to gender affirming care, I appreciate everything that gender affirming care has done for me. And I thank God every day that this was the right decision for me, because I have friends like Richie who it wasn't the right decision for, and now he's missing genitals. So, you know, when it comes to it being life-saving, the reason I didn't step forward, you know, even as somebody who might agree with that prompt, is because correlation is not causation.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Just because something is related to another thing does not mean it directly causes it.
Yeah.
There's a little thing called a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And sometimes when we create a narrative, it can kind of take on a life of its own. So I know there's a lot of talk about suicide statistics in the trans community. And interestingly, almost all of those statistics come out of LGBT activist organizations who have an incentive to put those numbers out to portray this image that we are suffering greatly, we're under attack, and then all of those suicide rates are due to societal mistreatment. And when these kids are being told, like you said, when they're going into these doctors, the doctors are telling their parents essentially emotional blackmail. They're saying, trans your kid or your kid's gonna die. And they say it in front of the child. And they set up this false dichotomy as if those are the only two options moving forward. And here to tell any child feeling any type of way, those are not your only two options. In fact, there is a vast array of options in between and around suicide and transition. Therapists and doctors aren't even legally allowed to say, no, you're not trans, you're actually experiencing A, B, or C. And that's the case with detrans people as well. They have this huge host of issues: depression, body dysmorphia, anorexia, eating disorders, maybe sexual abuse in their past. People don't know
Usually
that
they do
a
have
symptom,
sexual
a long
abuse in their
observed
past.
symptom of sexual
Them
abuse
and
is
gay
wanting to
people.
be the other gender to cope with it.
So
This has been in textbooks forever. So I just think, I'll wrap it up really quickly. I just think it's a false dichotomy that it's either death or transition. But with that said, I agree with you. I appreciate everything that transition's done for me, but it's too much of a roll of the dice, and I think it's unhealthy telling people, do it or you're gonna die, especially a child.
So for the LGBTQ organizations, we also have to remember that they are relying on reputable resources. And a lot of those reputable resources are the medical research that has been put out there. So all they can do is take that information and be able to disseminate that into the community. And to be quite honest with you, hold on just a second. To be quite honest with you, and let's also be clear that these researchers are also collaborating with these organizations because they are the ones that have the most outreach to the community that they need to serve, which is the trans community. Because oftentimes the reason why nonprofit grassroots organizations are created in the first place is because there was no place for us. And so it is really hard to get that research to be able to do that. We can agree to disagree, but the research has not been completely fulfilled yet because a lot of these people don't even know about our experience, and that is why it's important that we make it very clear what we need to do.
There's also, speaking of the numbers that come out of LGBT activist organizations, there was a little number that the life expectancy of a trans woman was 35. That was rescinded a couple years ago.
Well, that's probably because
after,
they killed themselves
like over a
so
decade
often.
of that being like just factually, shared. And I always thought that my life was statistically going to end at 35. So, but those numbers were based on, by those organizations, prostitute deaths. So it's not always the most reputable numbers they're getting, you know what I mean? And these activist organizations are political too. We get caught up in calling them activists and we think it's this emotional, spiritual thing, but they are political organizations.
Yeah, so I am an activist, and so a lot of what you're talking about really was focused more on Black trans women because Black trans women do not live past the age of 35 because oftentimes it is our group within the trans community that is often murdered, we're often harassed, we're often discriminated against, and so a lot more of that focus has had to be around Black, brown, indigenous folks because oftentimes the research goes missing for us.
They sourced it from prostitutes though. That was the source of the
But see, the thing is though, even when we talk about prostitutes, trans women have to sometimes participate in sex work to survive.
But they based it off cis prostitutes. Sorry, I'm done. It was just, it was false numbers.
So from what I understand is, a lot of that focus has always been around Black trans women because we do not get to see the age of 35. You are in a place, when I say privilege, you're in a place of privilege where you do not have to worry about the harassment and the discrimination that I face. I face as a Black person. I face as a Black person. I'm not going to say that you do not experience harassment or discrimination. That's not what I'm saying because like you said, you're a person of nuance, and so follow me here. When I come as a person of color, as a Black trans woman, you and I do not get to have that same experience. There are
You
more
went to the
rooms,
White House, I didn't.
There are more rooms that you get to walk in that I
went to the
be
White House.
forbidden in.
Wait, did she?
And one thing about
he
it is
meet?
that's why it's important. Like,
did he meet like Joe Biden or something? Who is this person? I assume that it's gonna tell you. What's their name? All right. We'll figure this out later.
Someone like me has to create her own space to be able to
So
counteract what you're doing. And I'm not saying that you don't. But what I'm saying here is, what I'm trying to get you to understand is, my blackness should not have to pay for your whiteness that
doesn't even make
is
sense.
destroying
Yeah, what the fuck is this person even talking
my community.
about?
I'm
Because of
destroying your
privilege.
community.
So are you gonna tell all of my exes
How are you gonna
that?
say that and then that's the end?
What you're talking about too is there's not the research. You're right, there's not. Everybody likes to cite the Turbin study, and Jack Turbin is a complete activist. You can just go to his Twitter account and see how actively involved he is in this and how financially.
I'm sorry, what was his name?
Jack Turbin.
Okay.
And you can see how much he's financially gained off of this study. And the issue is the study is based on a survey. And so it's based on a survey of adults. And so when you're doing surveys are not scientifically accurate. They're the least accurate way to do a study. And so when we're basing all this medical care off of a survey, it's a huge issue. And it doesn't serve, it doesn't really, and that's what they're citing to prove that, gender affirming care reduces suicidality.
My question is, if they're using a survey in terms of how they're gathering data, what do you suggest them to use a tool then to gather data? Because from my understanding, a lot of those surveys are actually more accurate because folks are actually not in front of somebody, so they're more comfortable to answer these questions. Again, we can have a difference of opinion, but what tool then do you suggest folks to use if they're not using a survey then? How do you gain that data?
Well, you're talking to therapists who can speak, they can't violate HIPAA, but they can give statistics on their patients. You can see how many people have entered into facilities because they were suicidal on that. And then you can go back and see, if we gave these same people gender affirming care, how did it help them? Because I see a lot of, again, go back to the detransition community, because we affirm their gender so much, there's so much, they're now having issues. They're contemplating suicide at a higher level as well.
Great.
I enjoyed this debate for what it was. It was quite ugly at certain points, and I wish that it was all trans people on the panel, because that would have been more appropriate and more fitting.
Wow. You're so offensive. You're an offensive.
Are they talking about this person?
Okay, well, I find a lot of things over here offensive as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're disgusting.
And I have to, trust me, the feeling is more than mutual. But I will say that it was very enlightening, and I hope to be back at Jubilee soon.
I definitely think this was interesting. Obviously, I don't think we have a lot of common ground on a lot of things, but I think we found some. I think what most conservatives in general believe is, as an adult, you can do what you want with your body. I talk to conservatives all the time. We don't allow children to make
I think that
decisions
you have
for
the
themselves
right to,
on
but
a wide
you
range
shouldn't
of
be
issues.
doing this shit.
And that's why we don't let them, mutilate their bodies.
I mean, it was educational, enlightening. I got to learn a lot, and it's nice meeting all of you.
I liked hearing the different perspectives, and I feel like even though I'm definitely in my beliefs, I understand where things come from, I just do not agree saying that everybody on this panel is not trans. I think it's bullshit, and I think you're trans and you're a part of my community.
Thank you.
Yep.
I really appreciate it.
I, despite all of the madness, enjoyed conversation with all of y'all. I love debates.
All right.
Unfortunately, it's really f***ing good. My boyfriend wanted to try it. Said he saw it on the internet.
What is this?
Why does George Soros have all of this power? Because he keeps donating so
'Cause
much
he's a
money to the
Jew.
Democrats?
Why does George Soros want to see the collapse of America?
Powerful the media are, and the media are the tip of the spear for the left, and it's George Soros who's funding it.
It's almost like he's an evil person in a Batman movie.
Billionaire hedge fund manager and philanthropist George Soros has been the boogeyman of the Republican Party for over 20 years. From his funding of institutions of higher learning in former Soviet republics, to his donations to liberal causes like marijuana legalization and same-sex marriage in the United States, to his multi-million-dollar campaign contributions to progressive prosecutors and Democratic politicians, Soros is playing the same game that conservatives apparently think is reserved only for them, injecting as much private billionaire money into politics as possible in order to sway outcomes. And while there are other billionaires using their money to promote liberal and democratic causes, none has reached the level of vilification of George Soros. The label Soros-backed is enough to send conservatives reeling on Twitter, with very real and very devastating consequences in the real world. This is due in part to the sheer size of George Soros's donations over the years. By some estimates, he has given away about $32 billion to various causes. But this is also due to straight-up anti-Semitism.
I
At the
knew she
beginning,
was
the
gonna
prejudice
say
was
that.
veiled in
I fucking knew that she was
rhetoric,
gonna
but
say
with the
that
election
it's
of
that-
Donald Trump, conservatives have
that
become all the more
everyone's
comfortable saying
anti-Semitic.
the quiet part out loud, and the dog whistles have reverberated through
fucking
far-right
knew it.
supporters and resulted in real-world violence that conservative leaders are able to wave off as isolated incidents that have nothing to do with their own words or beliefs. The reality is that George Soros is an easy scapegoat for the fear-mongering and anti-Semitism that conservatives are so good at, and the hatred has reached fever pitch in recent years. This is why conservatives hate George Soros. Roll the intro. Thank you to my partner on today's video, Trade Coffee. If you didn't know this about me, I love coffee. Okay? Espresso, French press, pour over, drip, decaf, half calf, full calf. I want it all. And Trade helps you discover great coffee from the best local roasters around. They have over 450 different coffees, from dark roasts to blends to rare roasts to decaf and everything in between. So you'll be sure to find something that you absolutely love. Trade recently sent me P&E subscription. Thanks, Trade. So who is George Soros? Let's get a little background on this 93-year-old multi-billionaire so that we have some context for why the right is so freaking terrified
Why
of
can't
him.
you just go
Born in
somewhere
Hungary
else?
in 1930, George Soros was 14 during the Nazi occupation of Hungary in 1944, a dark period that witnessed the death of over 500,000 Hungarian Jews in the matter of a couple months. Soros's Jewish family managed to evade this fate by changing their last name from the German Jewish Schwartz to Soros. They secured false identity papers, masked their Jewish heritage, and helped others escape as well. The post-war era saw the rise of communists in Hungary, prompting Soros to leave his homeland. In 1947, at the age of 17, he relocated to London, where he juggled jobs as a railway porter and nightclub waiter to finance his education at the prestigious London School of Economics. This was a transformative period for Soros, both academically and philosophically. Studying under the renowned philosopher Karl Popper, Soros was deeply influenced by the concept of an open society, a democratic framework where individual rights are respected and diverse opinions coexist peacefully. By 1951, Soros had earned his Bachelor of Science in Philosophy, and 3 years later, a Master of Science also in Philosophy. These academic pursuits, however, weren't devoid of challenges. Although Soros had aspired to remain in academia as a professor, his grades weren't that great, laying the foundation for what would become a formidable career in investment in the United States, where he moved in 1956 at the age of 26. So let that be a lesson for you, kids. Got bad grades? Don't worry, just go into finance instead. Soros's initial foray into the world of finance began at the Merchant Bank, Singer and Friedlander in London, and subsequently at FM Mayer in New York, where he specialized in European stocks. This focus on European securities became a hallmark of his early career, offering a unique niche at a time when these stocks were just beginning to gain traction with U.S. institutional investors. He had a unique perspective on markets and developed the theory of reflexivity. This theory, grounded in his studies under Karl Popper at the London School of Economics, postulated that market values were often influenced by the perceptions and beliefs of participants, not just economic fundamentalism. In Soros's view, this interconnectedness between perception and reality could result in pronounced market cycles, both booms and busts. In 1966, then a vice president at Arnold & S. Bleichroeder, Soros started a fund with $100,000 of the firm's money to experiment with his fledgling trading strategies. By 1969, he set up his own hedge fund called Double Eagle with $4 million of investor capital, including $250,000 of his own money. 1 year later, he founded Soros Fund Management, with Double Eagle as the basis of the business, growing the fund to over $12 million in 3 years. In 1973, he founded the Quantum Fund, which, since since its inception has generated over $40 billion. As of October 2023, George Soros is worth $6.7 billion and has given away around $32 billion of his
To
fortune
Democrats,
to philanthropic and political causes. In 1979, leveraging his considerable
mainly to
financial
Democrats.
acumen and resources, George Soros founded the Open Society Foundations. Designated as a network of foundations and projects, OSF now spans more than 100 countries, championing democracy, transparency, and human rights. The 1980s saw Soros extending his reach to communist Hungary, endorsing an open exchange of ideas by financially backing academic exchanges with the West, and endorsing burgeoning independent cultural initiatives. The landscape of Europe dramatically changed with the fall of the
What a
Berlin Wall in
fucking
1989. Soros established the Central European University, aiming to nurture a new era of critical thinking within the academic circles of the new Eastern European communist countries. His vision, however, was not restricted to Europe. From criticizing the war on drugs to being at the forefront of America's medical marijuana movement and advocating for same-sex marriage rights, Soros's philanthropic activities have been expansive and generally revolved around his philosophical dedication to the idea of creating and furthering open societies. Between 1979 and 2017, this commitment was reflected in his donations to OSF, amounting to over $12 billion, fostering civil initiatives, promoting transparency, and buttressing educational institutions across the world. While his work, like funding pro-democratic movements, was credited with influencing political landscapes such as the Rose Revolution in Georgia, Soros is often vilified the world over for his influence on politics and culture. In Hungary,
Let's see how much money he donated to Democrats this year. How much money did George Soros donate to the Democratic Party this year? Soros personally donated... Alright, that's 2020. I'm surprised that he hasn't already started donating to Biden's...
his native homeland, leaders like Viktor Orban, aligned with figures like Russia's Vladimir Putin, have cast a suspicious eye on the activities of the Open Society Foundations. The significant funding provided to Central European university campuses and other institutions in post-Cold War nations placed Soros in a unique and powerful position, enabling him to counter mainstream narratives and challenge established political systems. This, in turn, has made Soros a contentious figure, simultaneously celebrated for his dedication to liberal causes and demonized in conservative circles as an influential puppet master. Viktor Orban, Hungary's prime minister, came to power in 2010 and sought out the advice of American political consultants to help him amass power and to justify his increasingly nationalist, authoritarian ruling style. But he didn't just go with any political consultant. He went with a guy by the name of Arthur Finkelstein, a guy who had worked with everyone from
So in the midterms, Democrat candidates campaign. Yeah, so he donated $170 million to Democrats. That's a fucking insane amount. I wonder if he donated to any Republicans. Yeah, no, he didn't donate to any Republicans. Yeah, I figured.
From Trump to Reagan
Yeah,
to
that
Nixon,
might be a little bit
and was
of the
known for
reason
making
why
liberal a
Republicans
dirty
hate him.
word. He was known for his style of politics called Finkelthink. The main premise, find a single person, the perfect enemy, and then get the people riled up about that one person so that they show up and vote out of fear of their opponent. It's all about picking the perfect enemy as the face of a larger issue and to distract from your own shitty policy. So, for example, you don't talk about going after the Taliban,
sweet.
you talk about going after Osama bin Laden. He was the ultimate enemy, and the means for going after him were less important than just getting him. That's the idea. And after consulting with Arthur Finkelstein, Orban came up with the perfect enemy. George Soros, the outsider, international, liberal Jew promoting critical thinking in the people that Orban was trying to control. The government has accused Soros and his many foundations of ulterior motives on the continent, particularly relating to the European refugee crisis. They went on an aggressive media campaign against him, using posters with Soros's image to
New
foster
deck.
hostility. Terms like the Stop Soros laws emerged,
Hopefully he's
intending
just
to
going to-
criminalize assistance to illegal immigrants and even taxing
that.
organizations
Yeah,
perceived
that's
as
fine.
promoting migration. The vilification of George Soros in Hungary is emblematic of deeper societal tensions, and much of it is rooted in age-old prejudices, particularly anti-Semitism. Although not always overtly stated, the campaigns against Soros have often echoed classic anti-Semitic tropes, reinventing them for contemporary political uses. Soros is portrayed as a shadowy puppet master, manipulating global events
he
for his
kind of
gain.
is.
This notion of Jews as secretive, powerful manipulators pulling strings from behind the scenes can be traced back to notorious books like The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Viktor Orban's speeches about Soros have been particularly telling. In one 2018 speech, he said, "We are fighting an enemy that is different from us, not open but hiding, not straightforward but crafty, not honest but base, not national but international, does not believe in working but speculates with money, does not have its own homeland but feels it owns the whole world." These descriptions parallel those same age-old anti-Semitic tropes of Jews as deceitful, rootless cosmopolitans who owe no loyalty to any nation. The Hungarian government's assertion that Soros has a hidden agenda, especially with respect to the European refugee crisis, plays into age-old conspiracy theories about Jews orchestrating world events. Despite no concrete evidence of Soros attempting to flood Hungary with migrants, the narrative remains potent and politically useful. And this clearly anti-Semitic language used against George Soros is also used the world over, especially in the United States, relating to his use of his vast fortune for political influence. It was only in the 2004 presidential election that Soros started using his money to influence US politics, donating $23.5 million to groups whose objective was to unseat President George W. Bush. He contributed heavily to super PACs supporting Democratic figures like President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and was notably the country's largest donor in the 2022 elections, donating a staggering $128.5 million to back the Democratic Party. But it's not just high-profile national politics. Soros has been notably involved in local campaigns, supporting district attorney races to attempt to get progressive DAs elected who will address the disproportionate
Just
charges
playing
for
them both.
non-violent crimes affecting people of color and tackle the U.S.'s notoriously high incarceration rates. He's also been a staunch supporter of cannabis legalization, backing initiatives in multiple states and providing substantial funds to organizations
because
like
he
the
knows
Drug
that it
Policy
would dumb
Alliance.
down
Also, in an
society, and he
endeavor
could
to
probably
reshape the
make
criminal
money
justice
off of-
landscape, he's actively
off of,
funded reform
like
mind prosecutors
sales of
and
marijuana.
supported civil rights group like the Color of Change PAC. Yet, with such significant influence comes backlash. Soros' progressive activism, combined with his vast donations, made him a prime target for conservative conspiracy theories. His backing of progressive causes during President Barack Obama's tenure especially marked a turning point, propelling Soros into the limelight as a conservative adversary. Claims, whether baseless suggestions that his wealth might be derived from drug money or other unfounded
Dick.
conspiracy theories, have become an anti-Semitic dog whistle for the right. The election of Donald Trump as the 45th president of the United States marked a discernible shift in the political rhetoric of the country, and Trump's rhetoric played fast and loose with traditional norms and created the rise of a bolder conservative discourse, particularly when it
Damn
came
it.
to anti-Semitism and George Soros. Trump and his cronies have used
I
George
shoulda
Soros
known.
as a convenient scapegoat for pretty much everything.
All
When
right.
Trump faced criminal charges in New
I'm
York,
done.
remember those ones relating to his hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels?
Yeah, that was stupid. That fucking criminal charge that he got. All right. Well, I'm gonna be done streaming.